Chapter 291. Compared to Xie Junping, who had no sincerity in acting, Hu Huaying at least had a bit of performance. He wore Western cowboy attire with a crooked cowboy hat. Upon closer inspection, the hat was actually made of paper. It was funny and casual. Seeing Luo Nan and the others focus their gazes on his head, Hu Huaying shook his head rather proudly. "I'm okay, right?" Luo Nan's hatred had yet to dissipate. He sneered. "Much better than a certain cowherd." It was easy to tell who the cowherd was just by looking at their outfits. Xie Junping opened his mouth, but was unable to speak. He could only shrug. Hu Huaying stifled her laughter. She slightly lifted the brim of her hat and bowed in thanks. The appointed cowherd said unhappily, "Don't talk nonsense." "Are you sure?" Hu Huaying answered, "The blood peony will definitely participate." "What occupation? What about attire?" "Who knows? Just look at her height. She's a 185-centimeter beauty. Wouldn't she stand out like a crane in a flock of chickens?" The two members of the student council discussed the details. Shui Lei turned to ask the more trustworthy person, "Nanster?" Luo Nan shook his head slightly. His face faced the central crystal pillar. He was a bit lost in thought. Luo Nan was an expert among experts when it came to finding people. He slightly released his mental senses and swept across the 3 levels of the platform. However, he didn't find the person described by Hu Huaying. Instead, there was a clear feeling of obstruction when his soul strength cut through the crystal pillar. He changed frequency 6 or 7 times in a row before finding the right method to send the psychic waves into the sealed seawater. Aside from this, there were no abnormalities. Luo Nan first cursed himself for being stupid. It was impossible for the blood peony to be hidden in the seawater. Why did he do such a meaningless thing? But his thoughts moved again, and he suddenly realized something. This crystal wall could actually isolate a considerable portion of the psychic wave transmission. The material? No, there were traces of mutual interference between the mental and material planes. It was more like a blessing. A blessing? Luo Nan raised his head and looked up. He couldn't see the top of the crystal pillar. He looked down and couldn't see the bottom either. A blessing with this volume? His chain of logic collapsed just like that. Xie Junping mumbled to the side. "It shouldn't be here yet." "Then let's wait a bit longer. And we can't make it too obvious. We have to be a bit more natural. That person isn't easy to deal with." Hu Huaying also said, "It's strange. Tang Yi will graduate next year. She doesn't seem to be preparing to continue her studies. What can he do by taking over the president's position? No one can guess that person's thoughts. If you could guess it, why would you need to come looking for me?" Tidying up his sequined suit, Xie Junping sighed. "If we can't find him, then let's not look for him. It might not be reasonable to deal with him directly. Let's use a roundabout way to save the country. Let's go find the master first and use him as a middleman." Shui Lei didn't understand. What's the host of the 5 schools fellowship? Somebody has to provide the space. In Ocean Sky Cloud City, the Yao family is a major shareholder. Their family's 4th young master, Yao Feng, is in Cloud City's business school. Today he booked the entire 3rd level of the platform. Xie Junping explained a few words, then grinned and said, "The Yao family used to be on the road, and they also traveled by sea. Their hands are quite unscrupulous, but Yao Feng is a good person. What's even better is that his family seems to be related to Tang Yi." "You have a stake in it, right?" Hu Huaying corrected. There's even a rumor that he's a mistress of his grandfather. Anyway, he has a bit of a friendship with him." Xie Junping's voice lowered a bit. It was more or less taboo. He immediately shifted his gaze to a different angle. "I say that the key lies with Leister this time." Shui Lei blinked his eyes and pointed at his own nose. "Me? That's you." Xie Junping reached out and wrapped his arm around Shui Lei's thick shoulders. He gave Shui Lei face to face and said, "Yao Feng is a very fanatical fighter. Of course he has high standards but low ability. But when we talk about some professional stuff, the results will certainly be quite good." Hu Huaying added, "Tang Yi is a fighter herself. Many people say this." Xie Junping made the decision. "So today we'll start with martial arts. Leister, we're relying on you." "This is fine. How about we stop talking about it?" Shuelei was far more cheerful than Luonan, but the two brothers were more or less the same when it came to dealing with people. Shuelei thought of the burden on his shoulders and felt a bit apprehensive for a time. Xie Junping never expected that this big and tall brother would actually want to run away at the last minute. He was exasperated at Shuelei's failure to meet his expectations. What the hell are you nervous about? This is a social party. It's actually very simple on the student level. It's nothing more than finding an excuse to relax. The venue, the drinks, the beauties, the handsome men, and the unspeakable things. Are you afraid that Tangyi will take a fancy to you? So what if she takes a fancy to you? Don't tell me you're training in the virgin arts. You're the one who's training in the virgin arts. Shuelei's voice rose by a notch, but then he felt weak. You guys are all playing this crazy. Everyone has their own choices. Only by participating in these kinds of activities can you find your position. You know who you can cooperate with in the future. You know who you can use. You know who you can sell. You know who you need to hide far away. Xie Junping was deep in thought. He looked at Shuelei's expression and spat out a mouthful of spittle. You really believe that? A bunch of students. Students. Who doesn't play a little bit first? If you don't like it, then you fight. If you do like it, then you fight. If you do like it, then you make friends. Everything is easy to talk about. Besides, we're just preparing for a rainy day. We don't need to look at Tangyi's mood. We're just giving her face. Let's go. Xie Junping dragged Shuelei along as the group walked in circles around the viewing platform. After a few turns, they arrived at a semi-open bar in the corner. There was a circle of sofas here. There were no lights. Only a faint blue glow spilled out from the world's #1 cylindrical water tank. 7 people sat on the sofa. 4 men and 3 women. I found the main character. Xie Junping spoke in a low voice. Then he strode forward to the outside of the circular sofa. He slapped the back of the sofa, scaring the person closest to him. When he turned his head to look, he laughed and cursed. This was how they got into a conversation. Luonan naturally used his mental senses to distinguish them due to the dusky lighting, and the fact that he was cultivating in the eye's orifice. Soon, he felt that aside from Yao Feng, who was talking to Xie Junping, the 3 men in the group of 6 were quite eye-catching. 2 of them were relatively young. They were around 20 years old. There was another person who was a bit older. He was around 30 years old. This age was already beyond the norm for this party. Xie Junping began to introduce them. Oh, they're all best buddies who came together to play. Shuelei, a young martial artist. He's first-rate. You know Frost River Reality, right? That place on Fudong Main Street. Leister was one of the last people to withdraw. Luonan, one of the last people to withdraw. He's an extremely outstanding psychologist. He's also my savior. Luonan listened with complex emotions. It was rare for Xie Junping to think of these words to brag to the 2 of them. But what the hell was a psychologist? On the other side, Yao Feng was muttering to himself. Why did Xie Junping, who always brought a sexy female companion, suddenly change? But his attitude was still very cordial. He took the initiative to stick his wristbands together and exchange contact information. In the end, Yao Feng turned his head to introduce Luonan to the people on this side. It was at this time that someone spoke. Frost River Reality? That's interesting. My sister is stingy. No one can give me a proper explanation for that mess. Why don't you guys give me a proper explanation? The person who spoke was one of the 3 men Luonan had paid attention to. He sat in the innermost position and wore a military uniform. It was true that being a soldier was a profession, but it was unavoidable that an ordinary person would be suspected of breaking the law if they wore it. This person didn't sit properly. His arms were resting on the back of the sofa, taking up quite a bit of space. He had a sloppy appearance. Xie Junping was displeased to see such a tone. He had always been the one to display it for others to see. When had he ever enjoyed it himself? Xie Junping could feel the arrogance in the other's words. His heart became angry, but Hu Huaying lightly tapped him in the ribs. There was also Yao Feng. He used the dusky lighting to fiercely signal Xie Junping with his eyes. Xie Junping didn't drink alcohol or take drugs. His mind was still clear. His heart skipped a beat. He swallowed the words that were at the tip of his tongue. Yao Feng seized the moment of silence and rushed to introduce him. Come. Let's get to know each other first. I'll introduce you guys. Yidonglu. The soldier inside raised his hand. It was as if he was signing up. His voice was cheerful. He's just an outsider. He came to join in the fun. Xie Juanping's mind spun in a circle. He really didn't know where this immortal came from. However, this person didn't look deep. Xie Juanping could roughly guess his temperament. He was a silk pants. A big silk pants. Like repels like. Xie Juanping just couldn't find this fellow pleasing to the eye. At this time, Hu Huaying moved closer and whispered into his ear. Empty sky he. It was only 3 words, but the meaning behind them was truly terrifying. Xie Juanping screamed in his mind. Fuck me. He immediately admitted defeat. He was worried that Luo Nan and Xue Lei wouldn't be able to handle the situation well. He rushed to put on a sea-style attitude and laughed. What outsider? There are no outsiders here. We'll get to know each other from here. My surname is Xie Juanping. I'm just a bored idler. His fingers streaked across Luo Nan and Xue Lei before landing on Hu Huaying. I've introduced these two. There's also my other best friend. Hu Huaying who old third. He's a large farm owner. I feel that his family's farm will be opened into the wilderness sooner or later. Xie Juanping wanted to blur the focus and skip the problem of Frost River reality. Yao Feng was very cooperative. He said with a beaming smile, Third's family raises cattle. My family raises fish. We're all friends of the older generation. Hu Huaying raised her paper hat in greeting. Yidonglu laughed very happily from the seat inside the ring-shaped sofa. It really is a coincidence. We can all match up. We also have a martial artist here. We also have an old driver. Huh? How would a doctor and a driver match up? This bro's train of thought was too jumpy. The group of people were a bit stupefied. Yao Feng was the first to recover. He hurriedly changed the topic. Let me introduce you. This is Feng Jiejun, Instructor Feng. He's the youngest high-level instructor of the Thunder Falcon Dojo. He should be in the same circle as Xue Lei. It's a good opportunity to get closer. We'll interact in a bit. Maybe we'll even work together. Feng Jiejun was only in his early 20s. He was older than Xue Lei by 5 or 6 years, but he was already very young. Compared to Xue Lei, he was a bit thinner and a bit more handsome. He was the type that was very popular with girls. Xue Lei? He should be a rising star in the circle. Let's get to know each other. Chapter 292. Feng Jiejun's eyelids drooped slightly, but the smile on his face became much clearer. Coach Xue. Xue Lei said modestly. Not at all. I'm at most an assistant instructor in the dojo. I haven't finished my apprenticeship yet. Is that so? Which dojo is it? Xue Lei wouldn't let go of any opportunity to make the dojo famous. He immediately enunciated clearly, Riverwu District, Divine Yu Dojo. The dojo master's family is surnamed Xiao? Feng Jiejun grinned, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. I've heard a lot about you. Xue Lei was startled and then delighted. Coach Feng, you know our dojo master? Of course I know him. He's a divine fish after all. He's famous. The word fish was especially long. No matter how straightforward Xue Lei was, he still felt something was wrong. He looked again at Feng Jiejun, who was smiling and extending his hand. We should also get to know each other. In the martial arts circle, shaking hands wasn't a good thing. Want to shake hands? Xue Lei hesitated slightly, but seeing the other party's resolute attitude, he curled his lips and also extended his hand. The two shook hands. He then heard Feng Jiejun continue. I've heard of Dojo Master Xiao's great name for a long time. After all, it's rare to see someone who can open a fish dojo in Boshan building for 10 years. It's said that he'll be moving soon. Feng Jiejun wanted to display his relaxed attitude and speak fluently, but at the last moment, he suddenly choked. Xue Lei raised his thick eyebrows. A teeth-numbing screeching sound came from where the two shook hands. Then there was a light explosion, like a slightly deflated balloon being burst. At this moment, Feng Jiejun's palm was like a spirit snake. He withdrew from Xue Lei's 5 fingers, but his body unconsciously leaned back, stiffening for a moment before straightening again. He lowered his head to look at his own palm. His expression darkened, and the corner of his mouth twitched before recovering his smile. Your strength is polished quite well. Oh, enemies meet on a narrow road? He Donglu sat up a bit, and withdrew his arm from the back of the sofa. His palms banged against his abdomen, and he even rubbed them a couple of times. He had the attitude of watching a good show. What you said wasn't wrong, but was it really good to say it directly? Even Xie Junping had to concede defeat to He Donglu's silk pants ability. He thought to himself, if I don't drink and take pills, I'm afraid I won't be able to beat him. Yao Feng felt that he had suffered an unexpected disaster, but he couldn't vent his anger. He could only rack his brains to persuade him. It's common sense to spar in martial arts, but if you come too early, the later programs will be boring. Young master He? You're right. He Donglu readily accepted advice. He appeared to be quite easy to talk to, but once he opened his mouth, it was somewhat like his words were made of gold and jade. Feng Jiejun frowned slightly and finally took a step back. However, Shuelei wouldn't let him off so easily. He glared angrily at Feng Jiejun. Seeing this, Feng Jiejun's eyes darkened. Upon seeing the situation, He Donglu laughed. Don't be anxious. Didn't you hear that there will be another program later? When the time comes, I'll give you a share. Sigh, I've been waiting for so long. Old Yao, where's your family's greatest treasure? Yao Feng looked down at his wristband and forced a smile. We're almost there. He gave Xie Junping a meaningful glance as he spoke. Xie Junping understood tacitly and suppressed the unhappiness in his heart. He chuckled. Young master He, go ahead and play. We'll walk around a bit more. He Donglu pointed at him with his hand. Don't forget about the program. Program my ass. Xie Junping cursed in his mind. If he were to talk with Yao Feng for a while longer in this situation, Yao Feng would probably cry. He definitely wouldn't be in the mood to help them hook up with Tang Yi. From this, it could be seen that their primary goal in participating in this party was most likely to fail. He and Hu Huaying dragged Luo Nan and Shuelei away. Shuelei hadn't said a single word ever since he grabbed Xie Junping's hand. His expression was solemn, and his anger had yet to dissipate. He was pulled a few steps away by Hu Huaying, and then he turned his head to look back. Feng Jiejun didn't respond. It looked like he was on the phone. Luo Nan watched the entire exchange from beginning to end. He completely became a spectator. Whether it was smart or clumsy, the way these second generations dealt with each other was not his domain of expertise. He had no interest whatsoever. Only Feng Jiejun's matter was baffling. It even involved Xiao Xinyu and his Daoguan. Luo Nan had no choice but to worry. His thoughts stirred slightly, and Feng Jiejun's words from a dozen meters away, including the general response from the other side, were all captured by his mental senses and transmitted back to him. Shuelei's expression was still quite ugly. He found it hard to calm his anger. This Feng fellow is really baffling. Did our Daoguan provoke him? Is Boshan Manor a hindrance to him? Luo Nan responded casually as he monitored the situation over there. It's hard to say. Huh? You're saying? Shuelei wasn't stupid. Once he confirmed the key elements, he followed the vines to the melon. He soon pulled out a chain of clues. The meaning behind this Feng fellow's words is that he's jealous that our Daoguan is at Boshan Building? The Thunder Falcon Dojo is a big business. It wouldn't go so far as to. Could it be that he lost a bet back then and wants to get back at us? That's about it. Luo Nan remembered Shuelei mentioning something. Back when Xiao Xinyu settled down in Xia City, he made a bet with someone and won the right to use the Daoguan's grounds for 10 years. Feng Jiejun had mentioned words like 10 years and moving away when he was talking to Shuelei. Luo Nan compared this to the information revealed in the conversation, and the situation became clearer. Shuelei spat. The Daoguan is about to move away before coming. What were you doing 10 years ago? This won't do. Nanster, I'm going to make a call. Contact the gym master? Yes. The gym master never mentions these things, but he's about to provoke us. We can't muddle through it. Luo Nan stared at him. Be patient when you ask. Tell me later. Shuelei nodded. He found a secluded place and contacted the Daoguan. Since Xiao Xinyu usually didn't carry electronic devices, the call was a bit more troublesome. Luonan looked at Shui Lei's actions and subconsciously shook his head. I might not be able to get the answer. I need to go through other channels. From Luonan's understanding of Gym Master Xiao was truly a man of few words. As long as Gym Master Xiao didn't want to talk, no matter how Shui Lei pestered him, Gym Master Xiao wouldn't get any answers. Luonan wanted to find more channels to gather information in order to prevent the Gym Master from being stubborn. His best choice in Xia City was undoubtedly the Explorers Society. The society was able to absorb a powerful martial artist like Mr. Giant Arm. Presumably, the society should have a good understanding of the matters of the circle. Luonan pressed his earlobe out of habit. He had just logged onto the psychic wave network, but he was unable to find anyone. A small portion of the deep blue light in the environment was suddenly blocked by shadows. The remaining light shook violently. Some sort of oppressive factor caused the nearby people to instinctively turn their heads. Their gazes turned in the direction of the central crystal pillar. An enormous and flat ferocious monster with a diameter of over 15 meters could be seen near the inner wall of the crystal pillar. It was like an aircraft gliding at high speed. In the blink of an eye, it crossed dozens of meters of water. It rushed to the edge of the crystal pillar and fiercely collided with it. Its momentum was astonishing. The collision momentum of such an enormous monster was enough to shake one's soul, even though they were separated by the crystal wall. Some of the partygoers had been sticking close to the crystal pillar to enjoy the beautiful scenery of the seabed. Who would have thought that the scene would suddenly change? They instinctively cried out in fear and retreated in panic. There were even some unlucky souls who tripped and fell on their butts, making a fool of themselves. The monster, which looked more like a bat than a fish, suddenly rose up when it saw that it was about to collide head-on. Its deathly pale belly practically stuck to the inner wall of the crystal pillar as it climbed up at high speed. It displayed its astonishing wingspan in the most direct way possible, as well as the rows of malevolent mouthparts on both sides of its belly. Oh, and of course, one couldn't forget its slender tail that was 10 meters long. The tail was densely covered in blue and black scales. It was like an ironclad whip, and fine sparks of electricity even leaped and flowed on it. Its enormous body, powerful mobility, strange body composition. All sorts of elements formed the image of a terrifying monster fish, but this fellow didn't give up. After sticking close to the inner wall of the crystal pillar, and climbing a certain distance, it fiercely flipped backwards. At the same time it rapidly spun around the central axis of its body. Everywhere it passed, the seawater would swirl. The rapidly spinning waves were actually as sharp as swords. Everywhere it passed, fish and prawns, big and small, would be minced into pieces and then sucked into the mouthparts on its belly. The seawater that was originally clear and limpid instantly became muddy and bloody. The terrifying monster fish broke through the limits of a normal person's line of sight in the muddy whirlpool and disappeared without a trace. Even though the participants were elites from first-rate schools, the majority of them couldn't help but be stupefied on the spot after suddenly witnessing such a bloody scene. They were speechless for a long time. However, there were also a small number of people who were either prepared or had a different temperament. They were still able to face it calmly. There were even more people who laughed loudly in excitement. He Donglu was the one who laughed the loudest. Even separated by over 10 meters, his laughter could be heard. This bastard is a mutant without a doubt. At the very least, it's a second class. It's rare that its wild nature hasn't been eliminated. Yet you guys were still able to capture it. Such a malevolent and terrifying monster fish had already far exceeded the limits of what a normal biological system could contain. It was indeed a mutant species. Professionals who were familiar with the mutant genealogy could see that this monster fish should have mutated from a manta ray, the devil ray that people often referred to as a foundation. A normal manta ray was an ancient and gentle species. It had already lived on Earth for hundreds of millions of years. Its offensive capabilities weren't strong. It was only because of its robust body and its monstrous appearance that it received the name Devil Ray. However, under the effects of mutant, the monster fish within the crystal pillar had already become a devil in name and in reality. Especially the scene of indiscriminate slaughter before it left caused people to tremble with fear. Xie Junping had just suffered quite a bit of fright, so much so that he bit his own cheek. His mood was even worse. He couldn't help but curse. Yao Si doesn't want to do business anymore. Releasing this thing. Halfway through his words, he saw that Luo Nan and the others were looking behind him. He immediately turned around and saw Yao Feng with an ugly expression. Xie Junping didn't feel embarrassed at all. He just laughed and said, "What's wrong? The young master of the He family isn't going to serve you anymore?" Yao Feng instinctively shot a glance behind him when he heard this, but he felt that his actions were too embarrassing. He waved his hand and laughed bitterly. "I won't be serving you for now. I'll hide for now. Rely on the mountain to survive. Rely on the sea to survive. You guys are a black-hearted drug dealer and a large farm owner. We don't need to pay attention to you guys, but we make a living on the sea. How can we bypass the coastal defense forces? Bypass this family? We have to curry favor with them." Chapter 293. Oh, which one? Luo Nan's mind turned, but he saw a number he had never seen before. He was inevitably surprised. Just as he was about to answer the call, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. He switched to the settings interface and sure enough he had already set the restricted communication mode. In this mode, other than the people he had added to his contact list, no one else could communicate with him. They could only leave messages. The reason for this was He Yuein's suggestion. It was said that it could minimize distractions and focus on cultivation. So the question was, how did this number get in? Luo Nan was also curious as to who was talking to him. He was just about to connect when the other party's communication request was cut off. He waited for a while, but there was no follow-up. When he called back, the system showed, "Contact is limited, please leave a message." Alright, what's with this kind of low-level malfunction? It had been more than 10 days, and the debugging of the psychic wave network still hadn't ended? Luo Nan shook his head and cast this matter aside for now. He shifted the focus of his attention back to Divine Yu Jim. Obviously, Luo Nan needed to find people in the circle to understand the grudges and grievances of the martial artist circle in Xia City. But Luo Nan filtered through the people he knew in the society, and he only remembered Giant Arm. It was still a situation where he knew the other party, but the other party might not know him. Then he could only find someone close to him. Cragburst seemed to be the most suitable. That person came from the military, but he was one of the top 10 powerhouses in Xia City in terms of physical strength. He also had a lively temperament. He should have a common language with the martial artist circle. Luo Nan organized his words in his mind and sent a communication request to Cragburst. Unexpectedly, the system was still as cold as ever. The other party's communication is restricted. Please leave a message. Luo Nan could conclude that there was indeed a problem with the psychic wave network. He couldn't help but scratch his head. He was used to the convenience of the psychic wave network, and the members of the association would rarely record their wristband communication numbers, and he was no exception. Now he had lost contact with all of them. He could only wait. At this time, the second generations were still hurting each other. Yao Feng poured out a pile of grievances, but Xie Junping was completely uninterested. He only asked what he was concerned about. "Hey, that's a mutant. You placed it here. Don't tell me you messed around with Ocean Sky Cloud City, and then bought it from other shareholders at a low price." Hey, you can't talk nonsense about this kind of thing. Yao Feng's face turned green. He wished he could cover Xie Junping's mouth. Unfortunately, he couldn't cover it up. He could only grit his teeth and explain, "It's a client. He's also a distant relative of my mother's. He loves collecting mutants, and was willing to spend a lot of money to order one. It wasn't easy to get it for him, but who knew that he would die from overexcitement while watching the underground boxing match? It's not suitable to put it back in the sea, so I can only leave it here. I've been having a headache these past few days because of this thing." Who are you trying to fool? Xie Junping wasn't fooled. In your Yao family, it's not easy to find cooking utensils, and there are ponds all over the place for fish. Is there a need to place them here to spoil the simulated ecosphere that you've painstakingly built? This is all business. Hey Yao Si, are you sure you don't have any way to make money that you want to share? Xie Junping giggled mischievously as he held onto Yao Feng's shoulder. He stole a wink at Luo Nan. Since Yao Feng took the initiative to deliver himself to Luo Nan, There was absolutely no reason to let him go. This time, Xie Junping was going to keep a close eye on this predetermined middleman. He was going to establish a connection with Tang Yi through him, and Hu Huaying was on the sidelines. The two cooperated with great rapport. Luonen could only watch from the sidelines. He stayed for a long time and listened to all the twists and turns. He felt that it was quite boring, and Shuelei was still on the phone with the Daoguan. His feet were pacing endlessly. It seemed that things weren't going too smoothly. Luonan stood silently for a moment. Then his gaze turned to the simulated marine ecosystem behind him, which had just experienced an attack. After the monster fish wreaked havoc on this side, it fled into the depths of the crystal pillar. It had long since disappeared without a trace. However, even though a considerable amount of time had passed, the monster fish's power still lingered. Many schools of fish that were swimming leisurely were intimidated by an incorporeal pressure when they approached this area. They scattered and fled one after another. Beautiful purples and reds blossomed within the deep blue light. There was a different kind of marvelous beauty to it. Luonen calmly watched these chaotic schools of fish. Light swirled in his eyes, but he didn't open his eyes orifice to cultivate. He just did a few rough experiences. His feet slowly moved with the school of fish during this process. He was already quite a distance away from Xie Junping, and the others by the time he came to his senses. He didn't care. In any case, he was communicating with Yao Feng right now. It wasn't his turn to appear. And as long as he wanted to, the entire party area was within the range of his clairvoyance. He wouldn't get lost. He tried to communicate with the psychic wave network, but it still hadn't recovered. He didn't think too much about it. He strolled forward along the viewing platform, stopping every now and then. His eyes observed the school of fish, and his mental senses went in and out. 2 different domains, 2 different modes. They were different, but because the sources of information overlapped, they displayed a marvelous corresponding relationship. Luonen walked halfway. The information on the mental plane and the material plane corresponded with each other, naturally triggering mutual interference. The magnitude of the interference was extremely small. It was perhaps 1,000 times weaker than the amount of soul strength transferred from the formatting barrier. However, the influence on the eye's orifice still existed in reality. Luonan's eye's orifice, what was even more rare, was that it was unending. It had the wonderful effect of silently moistening things. The recovery speed of the water level of the eye's orifice also slowly increased. Luonan savored the subtleties within in detail. He was absent-minded for a time. This is a good thing, right? He stopped moving. He had a feeling of unease. Luonan suddenly sensed something at this very moment. Though the thoughts and emotions in his mind were still a mess, his body moved according to his senses. He dodged slightly to the side, missing by a hair's breadth, perfectly dodging the petite figure behind him with her head lowered. However, the notebook that was stuck between his elbows was caught by something and fell to the ground. The page spread open, revealing the lines that had been scribbled on it. Only a rough outline could be seen. "Oh, I'm sorry." The girl who had nearly caused a rear-end accident apologized. She combed her long hair and bent over to pick up the notebook that had fallen to the ground. Her fingertips touched the page of the notebook when she suddenly realized something. She raised her head in astonishment. "Junior Nan?" Luonen grunted and responded, "Senior Sister Tian." What a coincidence. The person who brushed shoulders with Luonan was none other than Tianxi. She smiled as she picked up the notebook and handed it back to Luonan. "It's not exactly a coincidence. You'll always see it if you participate in this party." "Are you pretending to be a doctor?" Tianxi tilted her head slightly and sized up Luonan's attire. This caused the tablet she was carrying on her shoulder to sway slightly. Luonan gave her a glance and laughed. "Senior sister is pretending to be a painter." He had studied for a period of time in a professional art foundational class when he was learning to sketch. He was no stranger to the attire of a professional. Tianxi was also very clever. She was still wearing the same attire she wore on campus. She just had an additional drawing clip, but she displayed a refined and gentle temperament. It was sublimated when contrasted with the tool. No one would be able to say that she was a female artist who had gone out to collect art. However, The drawing clip was most likely the thing that had just hung on the notebook. Tianxi replied with a smile. I've always been in the Design Institute. Although I'm currently focused on industrial design, I did pursue some art in my early years. How is it? Not bad. It's a good match. Luo Nan's words came from the bottom of his heart, but he had no intention of starting a conversation. He was currently in a restless state of mind. He said a few words out of courtesy and wanted to leave. Tianxi pursed her lips into a smile. She had the posture of having a long conversation. Junior brother Luo's attire is a bit strange. Luo Nan couldn't just ignore her words. He asked honestly, what's strange about it? I just feel that junior brother Luo shouldn't be a doctor. It's purely a feeling. Tianxi's fingers playfully drew 2 circles around her temples. Then she pointed at the notebook that had just been delivered to Luo Nan's crook. There's also this tool. It's a bit out of place. Luo Nan simply answered. I carry it with me. I'm used to it. Luo Nan felt that it was truly strange for Tianxi to blurt out such meaningless words. The relationship between the two was superficial. Even if Tianxi wanted to find someone to chat with, she shouldn't have chosen him. Luo Nan's mind sensed something as soon as his thoughts reached this point. He focused his mind a bit and saw a young man in his early 20s behind Luo Nan. The young man's attire was basically similar to Luo Nan's. He was a doctor character with a tall and straight figure and a handsome appearance. However, the gaze that was cast in Luo Nan's direction was a bit unfriendly. Tianxi should be able to see this person from her angle, but she just acted as if she didn't know. She chatted with Luo Nan with a smile. Luo Nan looked at the expression and movements of the young doctor. He had more or less guessed what was going on. He shook his head in his mind. Tianxi leaned over. Was she expecting him to attract the firepower? None of the people who could participate in the 5 schools fellowship party were easy to deal with. He was young and not tall, so it would be a waste to use him as a shield. Just as he was pondering how to expose her, he heard Tianxi praise lightly. I took a second look just now. Junior brother Luo's foundation in drawing lines is very solid. 3 years later, if I can enter the School of Design and inherit my family's teachings, it will definitely be a story to be told. Home school? Luo Nan's mind trembled. His original thoughts scattered in an instant, leaving behind only chaotic emotions. He didn't know how to respond for a time. Tianxi put her hands together and made an apologetic gesture. I'm sorry, junior brother Luo. I found it very strange last time at Frost River Reality. You were the only one with a different surname among the group of Mo family youngsters, so I asked Mo Chiu a question. Then I heard Tianxi mention a few things about you that were circulating in their society. I was curious for a moment, so I looked up some information. Only then did I find out that you are the child of Senior Zhongheng and Senior Sister Qingwen. Yes, Luo Nan's parents had indeed studied at the school's School of Design. Tianxi's words about homeschool were completely correct. Tianxi took a step forward, her attitude becoming more intimate. Actually, I've been looking for an opportunity to thank you for the past few days. Luo Nan's mind was a bit numb. What? Some time ago, I wanted to choose a topic for my graduation project. I also wanted to apply to be Professor Pan Wen's graduate student, but I rejected several topics in a row. Tianxi cast her gaze on Luo Nan's face. She spoke softly. I really had no choice. Junior brother's matter just so happened to give me inspiration. I used Senior Sister Qingwen's coupling design theory from back in the day to do a new research topic. Chapter 294. Luo Nan's mood was indescribable in a short dozen or so seconds. Tianxi spoke of matters that were closely related to his family, but the information, the names, and the concepts were all so unfamiliar. It was like he was in a dream. He strove to merge into it, but he was always lacking a bit. He could only do his utmost to memorize, afraid of missing a single word. He would completely dissipate when he woke up from the dream. He waited for Tianxi to stop talking, but he still wanted to continue. He subconsciously reached out and touched the protective glass between the viewing platform and the crystal pillar. He used the ice-cold sensation to make his mind a bit clearer, and he confirmed that Tianxi's words just now were not forgotten in the slightest. Perhaps his reaction was strange, but Tianxi was a bit puzzled. Junior Nan. Luo Nan really wanted to tell her. Tell me a bit more. But the words changed when they reached his mouth. They graduated 20 years ago, right? Senior sister Tian actually knows about them? Tianxi's eyelids drooped slightly, and she revealed a gentle smile. After all, many years have passed. It would be a lie to say that I have a deep impression of them. But as long as I look up some information, many things will appear before my eyes. However, I've heard that when it comes to architectural philosophy and aesthetics, some old professors will always use gear as an example. Senior sister Qingwen's name has always resounded. Luo Nan forced a smile. Is that so? In comparison, I admire Senior Zhongheng more. After all, I study industrial design, and Senior Zhongheng's theoretical knowledge is a bit stronger. Many of his research conclusions aren't outdated even now, including some conceptual product designs. They can be used at any time, saving me quite a bit of effort. Tianxi had clearly studied the information diligently. She spoke without thinking, and there was evidence to support her words. But what made Luo Nan feel awkward was that the more she spoke like this, the more confused he became. He didn't even know how to respond. His hesitation caused a gap to appear in the atmosphere of a coherent conversation. This gave a certain person an opportunity. Cici, the young doctor who had been observing from the back, all this time walked over with quick steps. His movements were very urgent, and he rudely stood between Luo Nan and Tianxi, using his shoulder to block Luo Nan's line of sight. Cici, you made it easy for me to find you. Luo Nan's brows furrowed. His fingers pressed against the protective glass. He had a bad feeling. He roughly understood why Tianxi could not wait to avoid this rather handsome young doctor. Such a temperament and behavior were a waste of his good looks. Even the elites of the 5 schools were so unreliable. Luo Nan's mood turned very bad. He didn't want to get involved in this melodramatic matter, but the vast majority of what Tianxi had said was what he urgently wanted to hear, what he wanted to memorize. Tianxi had said that she had looked up a lot of relevant information for her graduation project. How could it be only this little? There must be a lot more in her stomach, but after the rush, it wouldn't be easy to fill it up. Luo Nan stared ahead at the spine wrapped in a white coat. He took a deep breath, but he was unable to suppress his fidgety mood. President Zhu. Tianxi hugged the drawing folder and crossed her arms over her chest. She took half a step back. Her body language was very distant, and she didn't even pretend to speak. Based on her usual smooth style, this performance was about to reach her limit. Unfortunately, President Zhu didn't sense this at all. Or perhaps he did sense it, but he didn't care. His body leaned forward, once again closing the distance between him and Tianxi. He used the tone of a host to speak. Cici, the party is about to officially begin. I solemnly invite you to pair up with me. Tianxi really couldn't take it anymore. She took another step back and stuck half of her body out. She extended her hand toward Luo Nan, forcefully diverting President Zhu's attention. Let me introduce you guys. This is President Zhu Maoxuan of the Cloud City Business School's Elite Society. This is my junior Luo Nan. Zhu Maoxuan was very dissatisfied with Tianxi's body language, and he didn't like Luo Nan at all. Well, he was already in a bad mood when he saw Luo Nan and Tianxi conversing and laughing 2 minutes ago. He had long since decided on a plan in his mind. Bullying juniors was no pressure for him. They were rookies, after all. Rookies were meant to be bullied. Zhu Maoxuan was pondering over how to give the little boy in front of him, who had yet to shed his fetal hair, a deep impression. On the other side, Tianxi did something that made him fly into a rage. This petite, gentle, and beautiful girl directly bypassed him to walk over to Luo Nan's side. She even hooked her arm around the little boy's. Apologies, President Zhu. I just promised Junior Nan that I would bring him along tonight. Junior Nan just arrived at the school not too long ago. This is his first time participating in this sort of activity. He's still scratching his head. Tianxi seemed to feel that the action of hooking her arm was a bit too intimate. She let go and patted Luo Nan on the shoulder. She was older than Luo Nan by 6 or 7 years, but she was a bit shorter in stature. Patting her like this was a bit humorous and pretentious. In this way, it had nothing to do with the feelings between a man and a woman. Tianxi's series of actions caused Zhu Maoxuan's expression to fluctuate between clear and dark. He was unable to fathom her relationship with Luo Nan. Naturally, he was quite angry in his heart after being refused by Tianxi. However, if this was really a senior sister looking after her junior brother, then he would forcefully interfere. Things would really get out of hand, and he would lose a bit of face. Oh, hold on. He had observed Tianxi and Luo Nan from beginning to end from the moment they met. Since when did Luo Nan have a pleading expression? Mother ***. You're playing me for a fool. Zhu Maoxuan's temperament had always been tyrannical. He had the nickname of the butcher in the Cloud City School of Business. This time, he had played the role of a doctor, which was an irony to this nickname. Today he had hesitated for a few minutes and pondered a few more steps. This was already because he saw that Tianxi had a superior that he couldn't afford to offend. Now that the flames of anger had rushed forth, he didn't care a fart. He suddenly took a step forward, gritting his teeth and laughing out of habit. The muscles on both sides of his handsome cheeks pulsed, instantly becoming fierce and malevolent. At the same time, he grabbed the collar of Luo Nan's white coat. Zhu Maoxuan was nearly a head taller than Luo Nan. His arms and legs were longer. He reached out, and the little rookie was stupefied. He didn't react at all. It would be far too eye-catching to grab Luo Nan by the collar and threaten him in a public place. Zhu Maoxuan was an experienced character in this field. Though he grabbed fiercely, he was actually just grabbing the corner of Luo Nan's collar. He shook and shook, exerting a bit of force, letting the inside of Luo Nan's collar rub against Luo Nan's neck. Junior brother Luo, right? To be able to dress the same way as you is also fate. Today, we get to know each other. I will remember you well. Don't doubt me. My memory has always been quite good. I won't forget any face. Raise your head. Don't be like a girl. The vicious voice commanded Luo Nan to raise his head. At the same time, he used an exceptionally vicious gaze to stab Luo Nan. Senior's teachings are enough for you to enjoy for 10 years. You can't even say thank you. The voice came to a sudden stop. Luo Nan raised his head and locked gazes with Zhu Maoxuan. He looked into Zhu Maoxuan's eyes. His eyes went from vicious to scattered, and then from scattered to vacant. All of these changes actually happened in an instant. Luo Nan gently removed Zhu Maoxuan's stiff hand. Zhu Maoxuan was like a soulless puppet. His joints were all rusted away. Luo Nan frowned and increased his strength, causing Zhu Maoxuan to stagger backward. Zhu Maoxuan instantly came back to his senses. It was as if he had touched a viper with his outstretched hand. He suddenly pulled it back and even struck his own chest, hammering him until he grunted. He woke up a bit and wanted to get angry again, but his heart trembled when he saw Luo Nan's gaze. He opened his mouth, but he didn't say anything. He just turned around and walked away. Zhu Maoxuan walked far away, and he became a bit more clear-headed. He turned his head, wanting to come back, but he didn't have the courage. He could only extend his hand and point at Luo Nan. In the end he left hatefully. Tianxi, who stood to the side, looked like she was watching an absurd play. She was unable to discern any logic from the beginning to the end. It was as if the boorish and troublesome Zhu Maoxuan had been possessed. He inexplicably dispersed his ferocity and walked away with his tail between his legs. What did Luo Nan do during this time? Tianxi only came back to her senses after being stunned for a full 5 seconds. She hastily apologized to Luo Nan. I'm sorry, junior brother Luo. Just now I was. Senior sister is very popular. Luo Nan didn't wish for the topic to stray too far. He spoke a few polite words, and then he didn't continue. He hoped that Tianxi would continue to talk about matters related to his mother. It would be fine even if she added that person. However, Tianxi's mood was still affected by this matter. Her eyes drooped in a daze for a moment, and she looked at the trembling water within the crystal pillar. She suddenly sighed with emotion. The scenery of the crystal pillar looks like a dream from afar. But when you look at it too much, it's nothing more than this. Just like this person. He looks limitless on the surface, but he's actually quite unbearable. Luo Nan didn't respond. He didn't hear the information he wanted to hear. He wasn't interested in Tianxi's situation or her state of mind. He just felt vexed in his heart. For the sake of calming his mood, he imitated Tianxi and looked at the ripples within the crystal pillar. Luo Nan's heart lantern of the eye's orifice had yet to reach the realm of small success over the past few days of cultivation, but his gaze had become much sharper. He saw that the swaying seawater had more or less returned to its original color when it approached the crystal pillar. However, it wasn't particularly clear. Fine impurities seeped within, undulating and floating. Upon closer inspection, the vast majority of the impurities were the shedding, fragmented body tissues, and excrement of sea creatures. Luo Nan's gaze extended into the distance, and he saw shoals of fish stirring within the deep waters. The beautiful colors of nature attracted the visiting tourists to take pictures. Very few people thought that the impurities in the water originated from this place. There was a considerable portion of the impurities inside, and it was left behind by a crude predator like the devil ray. It looked dirty and messy, but there was an old saying: there are no fish when the water is too clear. There were also microorganisms, algae, and small fish and shrimp that surrounded the impurities in the marine ecosphere. These links formed one after another, connecting head to tail. They formed a tight and indispensable chain. If a link was missing and there was no competent human intervention, the consequences would never be too good. Luo Nan sighed when he thought of this. He faintly felt that this was quite similar to the difficult problem he was facing in his cultivation. However, his brain had long since been divided into two halves when he delved deeper into it. He was unable to think of anything, and his mood became even worse. He didn't want to beat around the bush in his vexation. He was prepared to go straight to the point and ask the senior sister to tell him everything she knew. Tianxi found a new connection point amidst her sorrow at this time. She suddenly turned her face around, and her delicate and charming face recovered its usual smile. The two buildings, one high and one low, mutually reflect each other. Really? Tianxi hadn't even finished speaking when Luo Nan impatiently interrupted her. Tianxi didn't think he was being rude. She just said, Cloud City Water Village has a set of ring-shaped buildings. Aside from the main building, only Ocean Sky Cloud City just happens to face the academy. There aren't any other high-level buildings blocking one's line of sight. The height and angle are all decent. There should be some basis to this. Luo Nan immediately asked, which floor is the high-level observation deck on? The 142nd floor. Junior wants to go see it? Luo Nan nodded. He didn't say a word as he walked straight to the nearest high-speed elevator. Tianxi thought for a bit and followed. Compared to Luo Nan's undistracted state of mind, her gaze shuttled back and forth among the stream of people on the floor, searching for the target in her heart. She didn't expect that she wouldn't be able to find her target. She saw Zhu Maoxuan, who had just left in a sorry state, walk over with large strides with a gloomy expression. There were a few people by his side who had similarly unkind expressions. It can't be to the extent of getting into a brawl at a party. Tianxi found it hard to imagine such a scene. She couldn't help but feel fear in her heart. She wanted to find the location of the security guards, but she unfortunately bumped into Zhu Maoxuan's line of sight in the distance. Her heart panicked. The muscles on Zhu Maoxuan's cheeks pulsed. He said something to the people by his side, and his feet sped up. Ding! The bell rang. Luo Nan had already pressed the button to open the door of the high-speed elevator and stepped inside. Tianxi whispered, "Wait for me." She chased after him in 3 steps. Her drawing clip slid from her shoulder to her elbow, and it bumped into the edge of the elevator as it swayed. She gasped slightly, "Hurry, Zhu Maoxuan." Just as she started speaking, a muffled rumble sounded from the floor. Tianxi shuddered, and the light in the corner of her eyes changed. She instinctively turned her head, and saw a dark shadow facing the crystal pillar directly from the elevator door. The shadow pushed against the enormous waves of water, and heavily smashed into the inner wall of the pillar. The violent impact instantly painted the crystal pillar with a layer of fine white lines. The transmitted sound waves shook people's hearts. It practically made people believe that this enormous crystal pillar would shatter on the spot under the impact. The one that created all of this was without a doubt the mutated devil ray. The participants who were observing the shoals of fish cried out in alarm practically in unison. Such a scene was even more frightening than the one just now. Moreover, The devil ray's behavior was much more berserk than before. It swam along the edge of the crystal wall, and its flat head smashed into the inner wall of the pillar over and over again. It was filled with restless emotions. Its body was enormous, and its force of impact was tremendous. There were clearly 2 layers of protection between them, but no one actually dared to approach. They were afraid that this monster would break through the protective layer and swallow them whole. Tianxi instinctively covered her mouth, suppressing the cry of alarm back into her throat. The elevator door immediately closed. Luonan swept a few glances at the crystal pillar before lowering his gaze to look straight at his own toes. It was as if there was nothing else in this world that could arouse his interest. Zhu Maoxuan and the others walked over aggressively. They just so happened to walk to the edge of the devil ray's collision zone. They were given quite a fright. They involuntarily followed the crowd and stopped to watch. It was Zhu Maoxuan who saw the elevator door close from afar. He urged them with a few words, and only then did the group of people catch up. But at this time, the high-speed elevator had already gone up. Keep an eye on the floor. Zhu Maoxuan made up his mind. He was going to give the adulterous couple a good look in this building. He slapped the elevator button, summoning a parallel elevator. He cursed and swore, venting his emotions that were on the verge of exploding. Luckily, the other high-speed elevator arrived quickly. Zhu Maoxuan glanced at the floor number and took the lead. He walked into the elevator, and the others rushed in as well. It stopped at the 133rd and 142nd floors. What's on the 133rd floor? It looks like an office area. 142. The high-level observation deck. That's it. Zhu Maoxuan quickly set his target. He ground his teeth and closed the elevator door, isolating the cries of alarm and clamor from the floor. Just 2 seconds later, another strange sound reverberated back and forth in the relatively quiet space. It flooded into their ears. Kacha 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 kacha. The rhythm was monotonous, and there was no change whatsoever. It was as if someone was fiddling with an old-fashioned pair of scissors back and forth. It didn't stop, and it made one's heart fidgety. Who set this ringtone? This was the first thing Zhu Maoxuan thought of. His companions were all stupefied. Zhu Maoxuan finally discovered that there was an unfamiliar fellow who had boarded the elevator with them. Perhaps he had been in the elevator earlier. He had been wholeheartedly focused on surrounding the adulterous couple, but he hadn't discovered them. It was a public place after all. The man wore a pure black suit and sunglasses. His clothes were ramrod straight, and he looked like a bodyguard or a security agent from a TV program. He would be quite recognizable if he were to be displayed at a party. However, the most eye-catching thing was the necktie worn by the sunglasses man. It was garish, but upon careful inspection, one would see that there were all sorts of beetles engraved on it. Perhaps it was because the necktie was tinted, but under the illumination of the light, a faint metallic luster seeped through it. The beetle's compound eyes flashed with light, brimming with a treacherous and unconventional color. The sunglasses man felt Zhu Maoxuan's gaze, and he slightly tilted his head. His eyes seemed to have shifted over. Zhu Maoxuan foolishly looked over and locked gazes with this eccentric fellow. The latter cracked open his mouth and faintly smiled, revealing a mouthful of pitch-black teeth that were branded with dazzling 5-colored patterns. Ding! The elevator door opened, and Zhu Maoxuan and his party walked out. The elevator door immediately closed. The group of people at the elevator door looked around in a daze. Where are those two? 124. They're not on this floor. Then why did they come down? Because. Chapter 296. Luo Nan's elevator stopped at the 133rd floor. Everyone else went down, leaving only Luo Nan and Tianxi. The number of floors rapidly jumped up. It looked like the elevator was going to be silent all the way until he suddenly spoke. What kind of person is Professor Pan? Half of Tianxi's mind was still hooked by the berserk devil ray, and some of it was on Zhu Maoxuan's side. She was stupefied for a few seconds upon hearing Luo Nan's words. Only when the elevator stopped and the metal door opened did she wake up from her reverie. She was about to speak, but Luo Nan had already stepped out of the door. She could only hurry to keep up. She was completely brought along by his rhythm, like a secretary accepting an inquiry from her boss. Tianxi suppressed the strange feeling in her heart and responded, Professor Pan Wen is a first-rate design theorist in the world. At least half of the reputation of our design institute is supported by her. Tianxi knew very well what Luo Nan was truly concerned about. She paused for a moment before continuing. Senior sister Qingwen was personally taught by Professor Pan when she was at the Design Institute. I asked a few of my senior brothers and sisters who stayed at the school. They all said that Professor Pan loved senior sister Qingwen like a daughter back in the day. She's a very amiable old lady. Even if she doesn't care about academics, she will certainly be very happy if you pay a visit. Luo Nan said solemnly, I will certainly pay a visit. That's fine. I can help you introduce her. Luo Nan didn't care how many thoughts were contained within Tianxi's words. He seriously memorized Professor Pan Wen's contact information. The two passed through the walkway and entered the open-air viewing platform. They were already 700 meters in height. The buildings in the Pingjiang district were generally short. Aside from the main building of Cloud City, there was a vast expanse as far as the eye could see. Tianxi said that they could see the wetlands and jungles of the school from here. Dusk had arrived, and the weather had turned cold. Strong winds howled from high up in the sky, causing the protective glass at the edge of the platform to buzz. There was also the sound of water beneath the sound of the wind. The peak of the central crystal pillar is the 142nd floor. Tianxi pointed at the raised frame structure in the center of the platform. The frame was both a support and a separation. A vast body of water with a diameter of nearly 50 meters was cut out. This body of water rose to a height of approximately 2 meters, and it was surrounded by protective glass. This is the rather famous Heavenly Ocean Lake. It looks like a part of the crystal pillar, but the two are actually separate. The bottom of the lake is separated by reinforced glass. So, it's just a swimming pool. It's just a gimmick that the operator modified. The two needed to pass by the edge of the frame structure of the Heavenly Ocean Lake. Luo Nan only shot a glance at this gimmick. He wasn't interested. The current time was just before most of the salaried workers got off work. The sky was getting dark, and there weren't many people on the viewing platform, making it seem a little deserted. Luo Nan identified his direction a bit, and walked to the edge of the viewing platform. He cast his gaze in the direction of the academy. He did see the wetland forest of the academy, and the outline was still clear. There was also the long river that passed through the forest, winding in and out, reflecting the light of the setting sun, appearing and disappearing at times. Luo Nan was able to determine the specific location of gear by relying on the silhouette of the forest and the river. But now, the sky was gradually darkening. Separated by a distance of more than 10 kilometers, that single building was really like a small component, lost in the shadows of the boundless jungle, difficult to find. Luo Nan still wanted to give it a try. He believed that Tianxi wouldn't lie about this matter. He wanted to use his spiritual sense, but in this situation, his spiritual clairvoyance, which had always been successful, didn't seem to be as far as his vision. It's too late. My field of view is limited. But there are viewing mirrors here. I should be able to see. Tianxi pointed to a row of high-powered viewing binoculars at the edge. These were specially prepared for tourists, and there were only 2 or 3 people using them right now. Luo Nan didn't say a word. He walked forward, moved his head to take a look, and then stood up straight. Tianxi carefully observed. Is it not okay? Luo Nan shook his head. The oppressive world he saw through the limited field of view through the binoculars was absolutely not the feeling he needed. He stood stupidly at the edge of the viewing platform for 7 or 8 seconds. Then he suddenly spoke without any warning. Coupling design. What in the world is this? He had a general understanding of the definition of coupling. It referred to the interaction and linkage phenomenon between various systems. But what did it specifically refer to in his mother's architectural theory? Tianxi had to answer this question. She grew all the more cautious and cautious. She thought over and over before saying, the Design Institute has a relatively unified view. It is a new interpretation of the classical Eastern philosophy of man and nature are one. And the practical train of thought is in the same vein as green buildings that borrow solar energy, water energy, wind energy, and other natural energy sources. Luo Nan furrowed his brows. Tianxi immediately increased her tone. But from what I can see, senior sister Qingwen's core idea should be that she hopes to use the orderly architectural layout created by humans to carry out an effective influence on the grand natural system. Zhang Yingying clearly let out a sigh of relief. What kind of mode did you set up? The secretary asked me for your number, but she couldn't get through. In the end, she even asked me to tell her. When will you let people be a bit less worried? Luo Nan sweated a bit. He had listened to He Yuan's advice to concentrate on cultivation, and had modified the settings of the hexa ear. He had also conveniently set the wristband's communication to restricted mode. He only allowed contacts who had already been recorded to enter. He never thought that a problem would crop up. Zhang Yingying grumbled a few words, and her tone deliberately turned serious. Listen carefully. I'm just passing on the secretary's words. What's wrong? Trouble's coming. I don't know what the investigation team from headquarters heard, or maybe someone misled them. Right now, they are completely convinced that you are a key figure in the Frost River reality incident, and that you know a few secrets. They want to dig out information from you and summon you for interrogation. Interrogation? They want to interrogate me? Luo Nan's mood was originally very anxious. He couldn't help but laugh when he heard this. What kind of play was this? It's the usual style of headquarters bureaucrats. There's nothing strange about it. Zhang Yingying's words were filled with disdain. She immediately snorted and said, Of course President Ouyang refuted this unreasonable request. But this group of people won't give up. They use the high-level privileges in their hands to create a malfunction, forcing the psychic wave network to disconnect for maintenance. President Ouyang just let them mess around? Shut up and listen to me. Time difference. Do you understand time difference? You're a rookie who hasn't even passed basic training. You probably won't even know what's going on when you encounter those guys who are proficient in torture and interrogation. Then you'll pour out everything in your belly. Luo Nan asked curiously, Hold on. You're saying that they've already come to find me? At school? Nonsense. Otherwise, why would we have called you in such a hurry? Right now headquarters has already sent people out. There might be reinforcements here in Xia City as well. For this group of people, as long as they don't take your little life, then even if their methods are too extreme and produce some minor repercussions, President Ouyang and our boss won't be able to kill them. Naturally, they'll be unscrupulous. Zhang Yingying spoke faster and faster. On the contrary, as long as you're under the protection of the branch, they won't dare to act forcefully in order to avoid things getting out of hand. Right now the psychic wave network is disconnected, and the branch is in a complete mess. We don't know who can rush over to help you first. Luckily Shuelei is here. That fellow's abilities are worth trusting. How about this? Find a place with a lot of people and stay with Shuelei. Don't move. It doesn't matter who is looking for you. As long as the secretary doesn't personally confirm it, you absolutely won't go with them. If they really want to play forcefully, then let Shuelei deal a killing blow. You'll be fine after holding on for half an hour at most. What about Shuelei? Let him respond. I'll make some arrangements. He's on the phone over there. Luo Nan. Chapter 297. From Luo Nan's impression, this was the first time Zhang Yingying's anger had reached its peak. He was used to her laughing and joking, completely improper appearance. Her sudden outburst was quite impactful. Luo Nan did not blame Zhang Yingying for her mood. He had received training from the society. Whenever he chatted with Bamboo Pole, Papercut, and the others, he would never hear anything good about headquarters. Luo Nan was very curious about this. How could such an organization retain people? Papercut's answer was resources, strength, and fewer restrictions. But he also admitted that all these benefits were as fragile as bubbles when serious conflicts of interest were involved. Bamboo Pole's answer was much more artistic. Not all cities are like Xia City. The environment of Xia City was indeed very good, but it was not a paradise that transcended the world. It was hard to avoid being affected. Recently, the investigation team of headquarters was the kind of trash that wasn't welcomed by chickens and dogs in Xia City. What was truly strange was that the Xia City branch handled things coldly and secretly guarded against them. How did they get the chance to come out and discuss people? Luonan was not prepared to bicker with Zhang Yingying. His thoughts spun as he unleashed his own special response. He did not give Shui Lei another call. Instead, he directly unleashed his mental senses. He was on the viewing platform, and the location of the party was on the 88th floor. There was a drop of over 50 floors. The straight-line distance between the two was no more than 200 or 300 meters. It was all within the range of his mental senses. Luonan easily found Shui Lei on the floor where the party was located. He gave him a subtle mental jolt, and Shui Lei's martial habits immediately alerted him. Next was communication on the mental plane. Since the communication was one way, and Shui Lei was not used to this method, Luonan did not go into too many details. But Shui Lei was very clear about the seriousness of the situation. He immediately informed Xiao Xinyu and hung up after a few words. He rushed upstairs. Zhang Yingying slapped her thigh when Luonan did not immediately respond. Did you understand what I said or not? I've already notified Shui Lei. He's coming upstairs right now. You can call him. Zhang Yingying was stupefied. She instantly collected her meaningless emotions and asked, how many floors off? Forget it. I'll ask him. Also, your mental senses have been opened, right? It's 80 meters in diameter. That should be enough. Remember, this is a matter of life and death. No matter what, you have to hold on and keep searching for suspicious targets. Don't hang up the phone. I turned on my communicator. Luonan grunted. He listened to the quick conversation between Zhang Yingying and Shui Lei. His mental senses silently covered a wide range of a kilometer. The magnificent scene of the Milky Way unfolded in his mind. Starting from the underground space of Ocean Sky Cloud City, there were nearly 170 floors. The life sketches of tens of thousands of creatures lit up layer by layer. Stars filled the sky, dense and numerous. Actually, Luonan could ignore the vast majority of these areas. He just needed to search for the areas that his mental senses were unable to penetrate. The speed at which the answer appeared exceeded his expectations. It was the high-speed elevator that he had taken before. The elevator next to it was shrouded in a gloomy, dark fog, and a few stars were faintly discernible. At this time, the suspicious elevator had already reached the 130th floor, which was the office area of a multinational corporation. Someone had pressed the button to open the elevator. It had paused for a while, but it would soon resume its upward state. Luonan let out a breath. Not too good. Zhang Yingying immediately replied, what happened? There are indeed people coming up, but their strength is unknown. Avoid them. Utilize the advantage of your senses. Don't come face to face with them. If they have sensing abilities and you really can't avoid them, then enter the crowd. Don't give those fellows the chance to make a move. Luonan looked around the viewing platform, his lips silently grinning. Right now there were very few figures on the platform. The so-called crowd certainly didn't exist. Even if it did, he wasn't willing to use innocent people as shields. Finally, he cast his gaze towards the increasingly dusky sky. It would be hard for him to unearth a new secret of gear today no matter what. Speaking of which, he seemed to lack a kind of intuition inherited from his bloodline. This son of his was unqualified. Wasn't that right? This unreasonable thought caused the emotions in his heart to tumble a few more times. He smacked the protective glass heavily, and this action startled Tianxi. Junior? Luonan didn't have the mood to give her an explanation right now. He simply said, let's go. Tianxi was stunned. Luonan's current behavior and attitude were extremely odd, but she was smart and didn't plan on saying much. She just gave a soft grunt of agreement, taking on a submissive attitude that said, I'll let you decide. Zhang Yingying was quite baffled as well. You're still leading someone? Who is it? Luonan didn't respond. He led Tianxi toward the elevator area with large strides. Given the speed of the elevator, he could still avoid the unidentified fellow. But halfway there, a new element appeared within the range of his mental senses. Luonan's footsteps suddenly stopped. His mental senses were focused on the crystal pillar. This enormous pillar had a diameter of 120 meters. Tens of thousands of marine life were placed within it, but 99% of them were muddle-headed. Their life sketches were also scattered. He could just ignore them. There was only a single devil ray. Because it was a mutant, it had a powerful aura, and it didn't know how to conceal itself. Most of its life sketches were exposed outside the nebula. It was extremely eye-catching and outshone others. And because of this, Luonan suddenly discovered that this big fellow had left the mid-deep water region that it liked to stay in. It went all the way up, its speed much faster than a high-speed elevator. In the beginning, the location of the Devil Ray was around 30 floors lower than the elevator that hid the suspicious person. But as Luonan used his mental clairvoyance, the Devil Ray's height skyrocketed. It broke through the 130th floor barrier in the blink of an eye, and its speed didn't decrease in the slightest. What made Luonan even more vigilant was that there was a much more obscure dark mist next to this big fellow. It was hidden extremely well. If it weren't for the fact that Luonan was affected by the bright life sketches of the Devil Ray on the mental plane, Luonan would have overlooked it. This wasn't some marine product. It was a living person. There was nothing to worry about. Luonan immediately changed directions and asked urgently, "Are there any elevators that don't go through Heavenly Ocean Lake?" There were 60 high-speed elevators on the upper floors of Ocean Sky Cloud City. The structure was complex, and Luonan's nebula image wasn't particularly good at dealing with inanimate objects. He could only treat a dead horse as a living horse and ask, "There are?" Tianxi's response was admirable. She had done her homework earlier. She immediately pointed to the west side of the viewing platform. "There's a row over there. Walk faster. We'll split up when we get there." Tianxi was practically jogging under Luonan's urging. She was a bit out of breath. "Is Zhu Maoxuan and the others coming up?" "I'm sorry. It's none of your business." Luonan made Tianxi shut her mouth. "You're still acting all high and mighty. If you're in the mood, why don't you take a few more steps?" Zhang Yingying urged Luonan from the other side of the communicator. She was mocking Luonan, but she was actually stomping her feet in anger. "If you don't have the ability, then don't pretend. Shuelei, hurry up." Shuelei's urgent voice rang out. "I'll go from the outside." Luonan corrected his position and updated the information. "Go to the west side of the building. I'll report the floor at any time. One of them is in the Central District elevator. The other one is in the Crystal Pillar." Luonan took out a thumb-sized metal bottle from his pocket as he spoke. He unscrewed the cap with one hand, shook it, and then simply tossed it away. The bottle landed on the ground. It sounded like it was empty. Tianxi couldn't understand what Luonan was doing, but her entire body was stung with cold sweat from his words, which were filled with the smell of danger. In the end, she was a smart person. She cherished her life. She didn't say anything, but she secretly turned on the communication function of her wristband. She hesitated for half a second between calling the police and notifying that person before choosing the latter. However, there was no response from the communication device. Tianxi's mind went blank for a moment. She didn't look where she was going during this moment of absent-mindedness, and her high heels slipped down the stairs. She immediately stumbled, but Luonan supported her. Luonan extended a helping hand, but his feet didn't stop at all. He half-dragged Tianxi forward. Under such circumstances, even though he didn't say a word, the pressing sense of crisis was like a thundercloud wrapped in lightning. It pressed down heavily, frightening one's soul. Tianxi's face was pale. She didn't say a word. She walked 7 or 8 steps in a daze before breaking away from Luonan's support. Her hand clutched the painting clip tightly, and her knuckles turned pale. The two walked into the elevator area on the west side. Coincidentally, an elevator arrived before Luonan even pressed the button. The bell rang, and the metal door opened. Tianxi's mind was numb right now. She followed her instincts to move forward, but she was suddenly pulled by Luonan. She immediately lost her balance, and her petite figure fell backward. She bumped into Luonan's shoulder, and she was pushed back. She let out a low cry, and the painting clip in her hand slid to the ground. The two people retreated at the same time, stepped on it one after the other. Not only was it dirty, it even cracked from being stepped on. But Tianxi couldn't care about these details right now. A figure slowly walked out from behind the opened elevator door. He wore a security uniform, and he held a police baton in his hand. The electric current switch was already turned on, and it sizzled. This new type of police baton had the effect of an electric whip. Sparks could be seen flickering. The leaping arcs of electricity possessed an absolute deterrent force from Tianxi's perspective. Since he was a security personnel, why didn't he call for help? It was because this person's face was a strange appearance that made one's blood run cold. Dilated pupils, stiff flesh, and flowing snot and tears. Everything presented was filled with fear. The corner of his mouth split open, twitching upwards. Just looking at this part of his face made it seem like he was grinning in laughter. His face was forcefully inserted with completely opposite emotions. From Tianxi's perspective, this scene was even more terrifying than the scene of the devil ray charging into the crystal pillar. At the very least, that electric baton was real. He's crazy, Tianxi moaned. The crazy security guard's throat emitted a strange, ho-ho sound just as Tianxi's voice fell. He exerted force with his feet, brandishing the electric baton as he charged over. Tianxi let out a short cry of alarm, and her body shrunk behind Luonan. Just as she hid in the shadows behind Luonan's back, the muffled sound of a heavy object smashing into something rang out. There was also the sound of something rolling. Luonan's figure stood steadily without moving, and he continued to cover the space in front of him. Tianxi breathed in with great effort to restore her calm. She vaguely heard Luonan say something in a low voice. Chapter 298. Tianxi didn't understand what Luonan said at all. She just saw the crazy security guard fall face first to the ground. The baton slipped from his hand and slid all the way to their feet. She instinctively wanted to pick it up and use it to defend herself, but Luonan kicked the baton away the moment she bent down. Don't delay. Take this elevator and leave first. Luonan urged Tianxi to move faster. Tianxi hesitated for a moment before walking out from behind Luonan. She walked toward the elevator when another ding rang out. A second elevator had arrived. Its location was right next to the previous elevator. Tianxi took a step forward and was half a step ahead of Luonan. She raised her head and saw the same scene from before. Two security guards with the same expression came out of the elevator. One of them was even carrying a riot gun. Tianxi's vermilion lips parted when she saw the pitch-black muzzle of the gun, but her throat was choked with fear. She was unable to make a sound. She no longer had the chance to hide this time. But it was also because of this that her pupils dilated from fear clearly reflected the entire process of the two crazy security guards' eyes rolling white as they silently fell to the ground. There were no sound or light effects during the entire process. It was like a pantomime. The people on the viewing platform outside didn't notice anything. But the more it was like this, the more bizarre and mysterious elements seeped into the bottom of her heart. Tianxi subconsciously covered her mouth. Her ice-cold palms felt a bit of warmth from the breath, allowing her to confirm that she was still in the real world. But why? Why did she get involved in a conflict of this level? Luonan didn't have the leisure to ponder over a girl's mind. He saw that Tianxi couldn't move her legs, so he gave her a light push. Hurry up. Tianxi bit her lips and took 2 steps forward. However, at this moment, the faint sound of motors suddenly stopped, and the display screens of the entire row of elevators on this side had all turned off. The power was cut off, and the metal doors automatically closed, isolating Tianxi outside. Whether it was Tianxi or Luonan, they were both stunned for a moment. Half a second later, Luonan grinned. It was hard to tell if he was smiling or not. The other side doesn't fight a battle unprepared. A muffled vibration came over just as Luonan finished speaking. The two trembled slightly beneath their feet. An earthquake. Tianxi's first thought was an earthquake that had persisted for over a month. But the second wave of vibration came right after. There was also the sound of crashing water. It clearly came from the direction of Heavenly Ocean Lake. The few tourists on the viewing platform were all extremely shocked. Some stuck their heads in the direction of the swimming pool, while others directly walked over. Tianxi looked over as well, but Luonan pulled her away. Go to the fire escape passageway. Luonan no longer paid attention to the defunct elevator. He quickly confirmed the location and walked a few steps quickly. He rushed ahead of the confused Tianxi, wanting her to keep up. In a trance, Tianxi took a few steps forward and stepped over the body of the crazy security guard. This time she didn't trip. Instead, she was more stimulated. When things reach an extreme, they move in the opposite direction. Her mind became much clearer. Remembering something, she stopped and bent down to pick up the anti-riot gun on the ground. Tian, said. A foot swept over and brushed past Tianxi's fingertips, sending the anti-riot gun flying several meters away. Tianxi's heart instantly spasmed. All her complex and chaotic emotions were squeezed to the point of exploding in this moment. She suddenly stood up straight, and she did not know where the courage came from. She rushed at Luonan and shouted. She unconsciously lowered her voice. You have to use a weapon to defend yourself. To guard down, said Tian. Nan. Tian, for what reason? I just took a course. Non-combatants can't possess weapons of mass destruction in similar situations. Otherwise, I might be the first to suffer. Tianxi knew that she couldn't get angry, but she couldn't stand having her dignity trampled on. She raised her voice. I've gone through military training. I won't hurt you by accident. Or are you worried that I'll shoot you in the back? Yes, they will when the other party has some sort of controlling ability. Luonan raised his wrist slightly after speaking. He asked through his communication wristband. It can control ordinary people. The controlled person's movements are unhindered, and their emotions are strange. What sort of ability is this? Zhang Yingying responded in the first instance. She pointed directly at the owner of this ability. It's Puppeteer. He's a member of the investigation team. He's proficient in high-level hypnosis. His ability is to control life forms with complex emotions. Aside from humans, he can also control wild beasts or mutants with high intelligence, as long as he doesn't suffer a backlash. We can now determine who's in the crystal pillar. Zhang Yingying snorted coldly. Stay away from that stupid woman if you want to live. You should have parted ways from the beginning. Luonan indicated for Tianxi to keep up. He laughed. The other party has made ample preparations. I might not be able to deal with the hostage situation. I might as well keep her by my side and be at ease. You're going to ignore her? Who knows? Why take the risk and try? Zhang Yingying choked. She said resentfully. I'm just afraid that you won't be able to protect her. You'll be threatened all the same. Then it's a matter of ability. Luonan used his mental senses to lock onto the two threatening targets while he cautiously observed the situation all around him. At the same time, he spoke with Zhang Yingying and split some of his energy to keep an eye on Tianxi. Multiple operations and multiple people taking care of each other. This was a bitter task for anyone. However, Luonan dealt with it in an orderly and logical manner. He wasn't messed up at all. In fact, Luonan's mind had become much clearer after these 10 days of training. He Yuan, bamboo pole, paper cut, and the others had imperceptibly clarified many common-sense standards for him. When he encountered a situation and needed to make a judgment, he already had a set of rules about what elements he needed to consider, and what he could overlook. Also, the cultivation of the heart lantern of the eye's orifice had allowed his reaction and coordination abilities to advance by leaps and bounds, even though he had yet to reach in-progress results. No matter what situation he faced, he would always be much calmer than before. He even split some of his mental energy. Leister, be a bit steady. Don't charge too fiercely. No problem. I'm around the 110th floor. I'll be there soon. Shuelei's breathing was steady, but his mood was clearly a bit tense. Luonan comforted him. It's okay. I've already taken down 3 of them. Puppeteer's move is useless against me. He arrived in front of the fire escape passageway as he spoke. He was just about to push the door open when he suddenly felt that something was wrong. The heart lantern of the eye's orifice flickered, and he immediately retracted his arm. He was just a hair away from stabbing his finger with the dark green beetle's pincers on the door handle. The sharp edge of the pincers was serrated, and there was a layer of green and lustrous light. The result of stabbing him would probably not be good. The attack missed and the beetle, which was the size of a fist, buzzed. It spread its wings and flew into the air, smashing down to cover Luonan's face. Tianxi cried out in alarm. Luonan's other hand grabbed the loose-leaf notebook, and he swung it like a fly swatter. The dark green beetle leaped up to avoid Luo Nan's attack, and then it pounced down. It displayed inconceivable agility. Luo Nan saw that the force of his attack was exhausted, and he was no longer able to block it. A thin piece of paper floated out from between the pages of the notebook in Luo Nan's hand. It lay horizontally in the path of the beetle's attack. It transformed out of thin air, contracting like a spring, and then it burst open to reveal a small and exquisite figure. It flew high into the air and kicked the beetle far away. The small and exquisite figure landed on Luo Nan's shoulder. It was actually a small paper man the size of a palm. It had all 4 limbs, and its face was muddle-headed. Its body was only a thin layer, but it just so happened to adopt a fist stance. It was extremely intelligent amidst its strangeness. The chain of changes could be said to be like a falcon descending from a hare. Tianxi's cry of alarm had only just begun. Things were far from over. Not only did the beetle that was sent flying waver a few times, but it pounced over again. 7 or 8 beetles flew out from the crack in the door of the fire escape passageway. It was as if they were carved from the same mold. They buzzed with the sound of flapping wings, and they pounced over in unison. They were a dense mass of darkness, and it made one's scalp go numb. Luo Nan's figure hastily retreated, and he even pulled Tianxi along with him. The small paper man on his shoulder soared into the air, even earlier. It was like a valiant boxing master. It faced the enemy head-on without the slightest fear. It punched and kicked, and each strike was heavy. It sent 3 flying in a row, stopping the momentum of the beetle's attack. But no matter how valiant and tenacious the small paper man was, it was still outnumbered when faced with the beetle swarm. Its figure was not inferior to the beetle swarm, and it didn't possess the ability to fly. It had no choice but to borrow strength from the beetles. It was greatly restricted, and soon it was in dire straits. One of its arms was torn off, and it floated to the ground. Fortunately, the beetle's reactions were not sharp or astute. They were confused by the small paper man's aura, and they all fell to the ground. They gathered in a circle, and because they were small targets, they hindered each other, giving the small paper man time to struggle. Luo Nan retreated all the way, but his gaze never left the small battlefield. He asked, "Is controlling beetles a skill of puppeteer?" Zhang Yingying didn't answer immediately. "Hello?" A sharp beep rang out. It was Zhang Yingying smacking down with her palm. The car horn blared. She was rushing over, but Luo Nan's words woke her up. She couldn't control herself and said angrily, "It's Black Beetle. That idiot. His heart is even smaller than a beetle's." Black Beetle? Luo Nan remembered this fellow. It seemed that Black Beetle was one of Zhang Yingying, Bamboo Pole, and the others who played the game together. During the operation to encircle the human-faced arachnid at the Limestone Water Village pub, Black Beetle had swung his hands and left because he was dissatisfied with He Yuan's blunt and outspoken style. Later, Black Beetle vented his anger on Luo Nan because of the matter of the operation score. He directly made a phone call to threaten Luo Nan. Luo Nan really didn't know how Zhang Yingying and the others were able to play with such a character. Right now, Black Beetle had already made his move, and he was going against Luo Nan. His position was very clear. Zhang Yingying went silent for a few seconds after she spoke. Her voice was a bit low. She didn't mention personal matters. She just said, "Don't treat him as a wizard. Pay attention to his close-range attacks. His speed definitely isn't fast, but his transformations are strange. His explosive power is strong, and many of his techniques are dipped in poison." Luo Nan's gaze cut across the mass of beetles. "That's really bad. Oh right. Is he an activation class?" "What?" Zhang Yingying didn't react for a time. "Soul strength activation. It's the type that Papercut excels at. Aren't they divided into the control style and the activation style?" "I think this move of his is quite similar." Zhang Yingying didn't understand what he meant. She could only say, "It's the activation class. But I'm telling you to be careful of his close-range attacks. That's what counters you the most." "I know." Chapter 299. Luo Nan's response really didn't meet Zhang Yingying's expectations. She slapped the steering wheel again. "What the hell are you playing it down for? Haven't you been attending classes all this time? You don't even understand the most basic analysis of victory and defeat. What the hell are you playing for? What in the world did the secretary teach you? I've learned a few things. The most basic principle is to analyze the advantages and disadvantages of the enemy and myself. We should play to our strengths and avoid our weaknesses. We should seize the enemy's weakness and attack them to death. Also, you need to have absolute confidence in your own advantages. You absolutely can't lose momentum. That bastard Cragburst must have fed you some kind of bewitching soup. Amazing. Luonan expressed his admiration very sincerely, but it angered Zhang Yingying to the point where she fell backwards. She really wanted to grab this kid by the ear and lecture him. But this really wasn't the time to talk nonsense. She could only grit her teeth, endure her temper, and speak layer by layer. Let me tell you, your advantages are all long range, and most of them are on the mental plane. Right now, Black Beetle and the others know everything about you, and their strength is far above yours. Most of your foresight abilities like mental senses have been crippled. You still have a mental attack technique, right? It looks pretty good, but if the opponent is on guard, it's not hard to specially prepare a layer of countermeasures. They've already reached this step. Why would they be afraid of putting in more effort? Luonan listened earnestly to Zhang Yingying's analysis, but he declined to comment. In the end, he just hung his head slightly, closed his eyes, and breathed out, adjusting his state. When he opened his eyes again, he gave a simple answer. I'll do my best not to meet them face to face. You. Level 125. Shuelei took the initiative to interrupt. He also reminded the two that it was better to act than talk. If they continued to toss and turn, Black Beetle would really come charging over. Got it. Luonan responded. From beginning to end, whether it was Shuelei or the two dangerous targets, they were all within the range of his senses. He had a grasp of their respective rhythms of action. He even estimated the specific data. Puppeteer is still leading the Devil Ray to crash into the wall. Black Beetle just exited the elevator. The straight line distance is 55 meters, and he's advancing at a uniform speed. There's no better route. Move forward. The first part was an instruction to Zhang Yingying, and the last 3 words were an order to Tianxi, indicating that this senior sister should rush into the fire escape, and he even gave her a push. But insects. Facing more than 10 ugly beetles piled up together, Tianxi's hair stood on end. She was already very strong-willed to keep her legs from weakening. Easier to deal with than humans. Though Luonan said this, he still shook his notebook. The pages split apart, and another small paper man jumped out. It wandered around the outside of the beetle pile, helping its companion to disperse the pressure and making the fight even more lively. Tianxi was unable to smile at all when she saw this mini and even comical battle scene. Ever since the start of the crazy security guard, Luonan had always been a bewitching core that clutched at her heart. Luonan would occasionally glance at her, but it made her heart beat faster. Most of this was due to the effects of fear, but she also remembered what Luo Nantung had said during the call. Under such circumstances, this young man, who was 6 or 7 years younger than her, did not need to hide anything. All his worries and considerations were open and frank. Because of this, the flavor of leniency that came after calm contemplation clearly appeared. Luonan didn't wish for her to become a hostage. It wasn't that there was any friendship between the two. It was just that it would bring trouble. But how could a truly emotionless person consider this? Tianxi thought of that person. She had already contacted him countless times after the incident, but he didn't pick up. He completely ignored her. Comparing the two, the callous and deep core behind his exquisite brows could be seen even more clearly. Tianxi found it strange that she was still able to think of these things in this critical situation. Perhaps this was the nature of women? Tianxi laughed self-deprecatingly after a few waves of thoughts churned in her mind. A bit of calmness reappeared from her dazed and chaotic state. She no longer hesitated and doubted pointlessly. She held her breath and carefully walked toward the fire escape ahead of her. The 2 small paper men gathered the beetles into a ball, clearing the path to the fire escape. Luonan and Tianxi took a few steps forward. There was a bit of commotion as they passed the beetle swarm. Tianxi instinctively shuddered, but Luo Nan promptly reminded her, "Don't worry about it." Tianxi looked at the wooden door of the fire escape, which was only 2 steps away. She simply closed her eyes and extended her arm forward. She increased the speed of her feet instead of slowing down. Her palm made contact with the door in the span of a breath. The beetles she had been worried about did not turn around to chase after her. There weren't even 1 or 2 extra beetles in the dusky stairwell. Behind her, Luo Nan pushed open the wooden door of the stairwell, but he didn't enter. He just said to Tianxi, "Keep walking down. Don't worry about the elevator." "Aren't we going together?" Tianxi didn't receive a response from Luo Nan at all. The 15 or 16-year-old youth in front of her had long since turned his face to stare at the situation on the viewing platform. His body leaned against the half-open door, his back slightly bent. He could react at any time. Tianxi was a bit hesitant, but before she could speak, a muffled explosion that shook the heart came from the viewing platform. The muffled sound wave was mixed with cries of alarm and screams. A powerful pillar of water sprayed out from the center of Heavenly Ocean Lake. It rushed all the way to the dome above, sweeping away the gorgeous decorations hanging from it. What was even more shocking was the enormous shadow within the pillar of water. It seemed to make a flip while sticking to the dome before falling down heavily. The pool water violently surged out, washing away many of the surrounding furnishings. The tourists who had surrounded the pool to watch the show, driven by curiosity, were swaying left and right. Some even slid into the water, screaming over and over. The viewing platform was a complete mess. "You're quite strong. Why aren't you leaving yet?" The situation before her eyes, as well as Luo Nan's reminder, made the stupefied Tianxi finally understand the meaningless role she played in this storm. She gritted her teeth, turned around, and rushed down the stairs. Her heels clattered against the ground, and soon, she disappeared without a trace. Puppeteer's methods had caused the viewing platform to be in a state of chaos. Even the beetles in front of the fire escape were in an uproar. It was as if their intelligence had jumped 2 levels in an instant. Most of the beetles flew up, and most of the paper men, who were unable to levitate, were useless. The highly intelligent beetles broke away from the stupid situation and took advantage of the situation to confirm their target. A dozen or so pairs of compound eyes locked onto Luo Nan, who stood at the entrance to the fire escape. They made slight adjustments, and they swarmed over with a buzzing sound. The dense black mass had the style of a horror movie. Luo Nan didn't react in the first instance. His gaze didn't even fall on the bodies of the numerous beetles. Instead, it pierced through the middle and fell on a certain person on the viewing platform. The viewing platform was in a state of chaos due to the magnificent power of the Devil Ray. A crowd of tourists clutched their heads, and some fled. There were a few unlucky people who were still struggling in the water. Only the person Luo Nan's gaze was pointing at was dressed in black clothes with the demeanor of an investigator. He wore a gaudy necktie, and he had one hand in his pocket. He walked over unhurriedly. He was on a completely different line from the others. Though his pace was calm, his speed was actually extremely fast. It was as if he possessed the length contraction technique. This manifested his outstanding body control and coordination. This was the Black Beetle. Right now, the distance between the two didn't exceed 40 meters. A well-trained ability user could easily discern the target at this distance. Black Beetle rushed at Luo Nan and laughed. 5 colored stripes were engraved on his black teeth, sending a treacherous and sinister power through the air. The speed of the pouncing beetle swarm actually increased by several times. Luo Nan's eyes were half closed. The impending dangerous situation seemed to be covered by a layer of mist. It was not all that clear, but the heart lantern flickered within his brain, reflecting the flying and crawling trajectories of every beetle, and it made predictions. The trajectories crisscrossed and extended, and a layer of incorporeal spider web was laid out. Luo Nan resided in the center of the spider web. The movements of any beetle would be reflected in his mind, and the beetle would crawl on the spider web. The beetle would slow down when it collided with the spider web. It wasn't that the speed of the beetle itself was reduced. Instead, Luo Nan's judgment and consciousness, which was brimming with foresight, caused the level of movement of the beetle to drop by a level. This was a newly learned skill. It was an application of the heart lantern of the eye's orifice. At the same time, the mental senses that had fused with his instincts displayed their effects. It was just as Luonan had deduced. These fluttering beetles were no different from the small paper men on the ground in a practical sense. They were just mediums for the activation of soul strength. They were carriers of the operational structure of core energy and information. Luonan's mental senses illuminated the special configurations of the bodies of each beetle, and they were all reflected one by one. Even though there was a certain difference from the prismatic structure that he had come into contact with the most, Papercut's course had touched upon several basic transformation modes. Therefore, the changes in the core structure of the beetles, including their corresponding rhythms, entered the scope of Luonan's clairvoyance. Not a single strand of it was reflected into his mind. Just like that, his mental senses and the illumination of the heart lantern fused together. The spider web, which originally only involved the movement of objects, suddenly merged with many more layers. It was densely packed, layer upon layer of obstacles. The flying and pouncing beetles immediately slowed down by a level. In the domain of reaction, a beat slower was the difference of an entire world. All sorts of changes were synchronized with the control center of Luonan's body. Luonan responded according to the level of danger. What Luonan did was to step sideways to make way for the entrance to the fire escape passageway. He added more force to the automatic rebounding wooden door. This was a simple set of actions, but the most rare thing about them was that they were clearly layered. They weren't messed up at all, and they gave off a feeling of calm and unruffled. This was the full embodiment of body coordination. Half of the effects of cultivating the heart lantern of the eye's orifice over the past 10 days came from this. The door closed heavily. Through the glass of the door, Luonan could see the beetles unable to dodge in time. They collided headfirst into the door, and the crackling sounds of impact were quite crisp. Of course, this wasn't enough. These beetles weren't made of steel, so a normal impact wouldn't be able to injure them. Luonan didn't hope that this attack would succeed. He just used the door to block, and then he ran down the stairs. His eyes remained half closed as he ran, and an incorporeal spider web revolved around him in the void. Above his head, on the familiar mental plane, a vicious and ugly shadow responded to his summons. It appeared by his side, occupying the center of the spider web. Its 6 eyes circulated with brilliance as it absorbed information from all directions. It was none other than the executor who had gotten rid of the 3 crazy security guards. The human-faced arachnid. Chapter 300. The human-faced arachnid in Luonan's hands was not an original type. It was a product of faith developed by the Order of Justice. It was a high-quality imitation version that Luonan had personally created. He had created and used it back at Frost River Reality. It was quite easy to order it around. Unfortunately, it was later destroyed by Wang. Luonan had already forgotten about this matter with the passage of time. He never expected that Fairchild would send someone to deliver a small bottle of raw materials for some unknown reason, before he went back to report. It was the metal bottle that Luonan had just thrown on the ground. Of course, the actual application of the human-faced arachnid still needed to mix in some negative emotions as a catalyst. This was not difficult for Luonan. The Wraith sign remained within the Bloodflame order, making it difficult to summon. This imitation human-faced arachnid could more or less serve as a substitute. The human-faced arachnid had locked onto all the threatening targets with Luonan's mental senses. The reason why it did not make a move was because Luonan had an unreliable feeling through his observations of the life sketches. He was like an experienced sniper who had a premonition of hitting or not hitting the target before pulling the trigger. No matter how bad the premonition was, it was impossible for Luonan to hesitate any longer. With a thought, the human-faced arachnid spat out an incorporeal shockwave. The shockwave passed through the insects that lacked the light of intelligence. It penetrated through all the barriers of the human body, and bombarded the soul body of Black Beetle, who was closing in endlessly. A visible tremor appeared on Black Beetle's body as soon as the attack hit. His advancing figure turned slightly sluggish, but that was all. He was just stunned for a moment. His head tilted slightly, and his gaze behind his sunglasses seemed to be able to penetrate the structure of the building to land on Luonan. All right, Zhang Yingying's jinx had come true. His long-range attack really did not have any effect. Speaking of which, this was not a rare thing. Luonan had seen many problems with the siege hammer being ineffective. The human-faced arachnid had wreaked havoc in Xia City for nearly a month. Everyone gradually became aware of the methods it specialized in. Every power revolved around its existence, and the Order of Justice was able to create a faith product. How could they not allow others to create similar mental defenses? Luonan was just stunned. He did not feel depressed or flustered. He had already reached the 141st floor. He hesitated for a moment in the stairwell, before walking out of the fire escape passageway. There was no one else on this floor. Inside the building, 99% of the lighting in the public area revolved around the crystal pillar, emitting a dreamy blue light. Luonan's gaze swept over as well. The waves had yet to calm down, but the magnitude of the tremors was decreasing. The Devil Ray's silhouette was nowhere to be seen. Thoughts spun in his mind, but his feet did not stop. He walked straight along the edge of the crystal pillar, and quickly walked toward the elevator in the central area. This series of actions was very exhausting, and his breathing was slightly ragged. Just as he reached the middle section of the crystal pillar, two loud thumps came from the stairwell behind him. The doors above and below opened one after another in just 2 seconds. Black Beetle, dressed in formal attire, walked out with large strides and let out a sharp whistle that carried a hint of mockery. Luonan turned around just in time to officially meet this person face to face. Black Beetle's appearance didn't bring Luonan any more pleasant surprises. Luonan had long since memorized the details of this person's face clearly through his mental senses. If there was anything different about Ruo Chang, it would probably be the group of beetles flying around him, and the 2 paper dolls in his hands. Clearly, it would be very difficult for the 2 paper dolls to be of any use against an ability user like Black Beetle. Black Beetle's feet did not stop. The muscles on his half-covered face trembled, and his lips split open to reveal the pattern of black teeth. Luonan was stunned for a moment before he understood that this was Black Beetle's smile. "Kid, this is our first meeting. I made an appointment with you. You're just a lowly piece of trash who vents his anger by cursing over the phone." Luonan spoke very frankly about his impression of Black Beetle. Black Beetle's face instantly emitted a layer of green energy when his self-introduction was stuck. The pattern on his black teeth moved back and forth, and at the same time, he exerted more strength in his fingers. The 2 paper dolls, who were already on the verge of death, were kneaded back and forth. Soon they were deformed. In the end, they turned into specks of dust that drifted down from between his fingers. Luonan's eyes jumped. A small portion of his 10 days of hard work was gone just like that. Black Beetle noticed where Luonan's gaze was directed at and clapped his hands, knocking off the last of the paper. His eyes behind his sunglasses looked straight at Luonan. "Your mouth is a lot sharper, but..." "Activation class? Didn't they say that there's a problem with your interference power? That your progress has stagnated? Those people who deal with intelligence must be joking around." Luonan didn't say anything. His field of vision covered Black Beetle, as well as his own kind that fluttered around him. The heart lantern of the eye's orifice and his mental senses worked in sync. From beginning to end, Luonan analyzed and made predictions. Luonan was still moving backward while his mind was focused on observing. He was facing Black Beetle. He walked backward, but his speed was not slow. What should have been a comical action was done very calmly and beautifully. This was the result of his body's coordination. Luonan definitely wouldn't have been able to do such an action 10 days ago. The wonders of cultivating in the eye's orifice lay in this. It wasn't simply training the eyes. It was a kind of cultivation that encompassed the entire body. According to Gym Master Xiao, this was the beginning of a lifetime of cultivation. It played the role of summarizing the essentials. Luonan's strength, speed, and other hard indicators might not have made much progress over the past 10 days through targeted practice, but all of his abilities related to integration, coordination, and control had clearly increased. Even Black Beetle raised an eyebrow when he saw this scene. "You've spent quite a bit of effort in training that robotic woman. Is it because you've licked her to your heart's content?" Black Beetle's words were far from the main topic, and they were even more unbearable to the ears. Luonan's eyelids twitched, but his rhythm of observation and retreat was not disrupted. There was only a distance of 10 meters left between him and the edge of the central crystal pillar. He just needed to make a turn there, and he would reach the elevator area. Black Beetle twisted his neck. His footsteps seemed slow, but they were actually fast. He strode in close pursuit. What are you running for? Do you still remember what I said? We're going to play slowly. My words must be true. My actions must be resolute. This has always been my motto. No matter how Black Beetle provoked, probed, and mocked him, Luonan made up his mind not to say a word. He knew that the real show had yet to begin. He was happy to see this situation. Shuelei had already broken through the threshold of the 130th floor. There was only a straight line distance of 40 to 50 meters left. However, the difficulty of climbing a building and running were different in the end. Plus, the difference in speed between Luonan and Black Beetle was very clear. Black Beetle took a few steps, and the distance between the two closed to around 30 meters. Luonan blinked, and his eyelids drooped down. The scene before his eyes turned a bit fuzzy. Black Beetle's method of advancing looked ordinary, but it was actually full of tricks and changes. Any tiny movement of his shoulders, hips, waist, and spine could be seen as a prelude to some change. Plus, his exuberant aura of life and his self-formed self-logic obscured the details of the life sketches from beginning to end. This brought great trouble to Luonan's analysis and judgment. Luonan's spiderweb became even more complex because of Black Beetle's existence. The consumption of energy increased endlessly. Black Beetle's voice cut in at the right time. It was indescribably sinister. Are you sure you want to continue running? It's true that intelligence is often funny, but there are times when it's useful. I know that you have an outstanding range of mental senses. You have decent mental attack techniques, and you even have the ability to activate your class. But your body and soul are out of balance, and your body is reaching its limits. This information isn't wrong, right? Kid, do you feel your fingers go numb? Your entire body is burning, and your body is aching? Luonan's eyelids twitched. It wasn't just because of the provocation from Black Beetle's words. It was also because the distance between him and Black Beetle had already entered the threshold of 20 meters. For an ability user, Black Beetle could practically reach Luonan in a single pounce. Black Beetle's words grew all the more unhurried, but the pressure of his movements continued to increase. Your 3 axes are right there. Everyone can see it. Have you ever learned the analysis of the factors that determine victory and defeat? How to calculate the factors that determine victory and defeat, advantages and disadvantages. Actually, you don't need to lick that robotic woman. I, Uncle Bug, can teach you step by step right now. Oh, your eyes. It's your eyes, right? Your blood vessels are about to burst. At this very moment, Luonan's half-squinted eyes were already glistening with a bright red color. It was just as Black Beetle had said. The blood vessels around his eyes were about to burst. The heart lantern of the eye's orifice was used with mental senses. The results were excellent. The trajectory of activity on the material plane. The source of control on the mental plane. The structure of energy and information that interfered with each other. The elements of different planes corresponded and appeared. They affected and interfered with each other. Only by using a united method could everything be displayed in the most comprehensive manner. It was quite helpful in increasing the progress of cultivating in the eye's orifice. This point had already been displayed when he was watching the fish at the party. But Luonan's current cultivation situation could tell that there were hidden dangers in this close relationship. He had felt a sense of crisis for many days. But who would care about these things at this critical juncture? Now, after a round of cultivation, the hidden dangers began to reveal themselves. The most direct and fatal point was the limits of what his body could bear. Black Beetle believed that the time was right. He let out a strange chuckle from his throat. We can keep playing, or we can be honest with each other. Why don't you tell me what you saw in the logic world? The question that came out of nowhere made Luonan, who was suffering from the limits of his eyes, feel his heart thump heavily. How many people knew about such a secretive matter? How did the news leak out? Black Beetle grasped an opportunity during Luonan's moment of distraction. How could he expect Luonan to spit it out? Black Beetle had used a series of oppressive words and actions for the sake of obtaining this opportunity to strike. Black Beetle's figure suddenly blurred, and he flashed out from the swarm of beetles surrounding his body. Even Zhang Yingying would praise him for his explosive power. He instantly crossed a distance of nearly 20 meters and clawed at Luo Nan's face. Black Beetle saw that Luo Nan was only an arm's length away, but an attack assaulted him on the mental plane. He's exhausted his limited abilities. Black Beetle had long since anticipated Luo Nan's response. There were only a few methods this kid could use at his current stage, no matter how one looked at it. Black Beetle had long since made his preparations to take on Luo Nan. He had specially cast a protective spell before taking action. It could withstand at least 5 similar waves of attacks. Black Beetle deliberately stared at Luo Nan's eyes. He hoped that the fear and despair in this kid's heart would spurt out along with the high-pressure burst of blood. Black Beetle would use the Hexa-ear to capture this marvelous scene. He would give it to the robotic woman, to all the old friends who flattered and coaxed this kid, but had forgotten about him. In the next moment, the attack on the mental plane touched the protective net formed by Luo Nan's incantation. Black Beetle saw his wish come true. Blood seeped out from the corner of Luo Nan's eyes. Black Beetle's lips parted, and he welcomed all of this with a smile. Oh, wait a moment. His thoroughly tempered psychic senses sensed something strange. The mental attack came over, but there were no intertwining changes between the attack and the buffer as he had expected. It was empty. But there was a strand of gentle wind. There was even an even more formless beam of light that was cast inside. The wind passed through the gap, illuminating the earth. Chapter 301. Black Beetle could be considered a mentally enhanced ability user. Even though he didn't have much talent in the field of sensing and observation, he had basic common sense. If his own sensing and observation could reach the standard of being transparent and bright, being unobstructed and unobstructed, then it would naturally be excellent. The problem was that when he became the target of sensing and observation, his entire body would be leaking wind and rain. His body and mind would be exposed to the finest details. That would drive him crazy. This was what Black Beetle was feeling right now. From a realistic and understandable level, Luo Nan's face was between his palms and fingers. He just needed to reach out a little, and he would be able to tear the kid's face off. But when that feeling of being unobstructed and unobstructed appeared, he felt as if his body was leaking wind from all sides. An unsuppressible feeling of weakness instantly flooded his entire body. What was going on? It was hard for Black Beetle to figure out this sudden and unforeseen event in a short amount of time. He could only see Luo Nan's eyes oozing blood through the gaps between his palms and fingers. Luo Nan's pupils were slightly dilated, unfocused, motionless, and somewhat lifeless. Just as this judgment arose in Black Beetle's mind, Luo Nan's eyeballs moved. The scattered rays of light faintly converged, and there was a bit of weak light that connected with Black Beetle's line of sight. The glimmering light was like a needle. The penetrating force was like silk. This tiny force of the needle would only cause a bit of pain if it pierced into the thick skin and flesh. But if it pierced into the eyeball, the heart, or the brain, then the result would certainly be different. This was what Black Beetle sensed. The state of being riddled with holes was unable to provide any protection, and the force of the needle was unimpeded. It pierced through and stirred at his weakest and most fatal location. In an instant, the pain was like thunder, exploding in his brain. It then rapidly spread out, unable to be controlled. Black Beetle howled in pain. His eyeballs nearly popped out of his eye sockets. Black and red crisscrossed in his field of vision. His senses were in chaos. Fear flooded his heart instinctively, but his many years of fighting experience still drove him. He summoned his remaining courage and did his utmost to reach out with his hand. He intended to take down the mischievous kid in one fell swoop. He was only a fist's distance away. His fingernails, coated with poison, only grabbed air. Black Beetle's figure continued to charge forward after his attack missed. Only now did he remember that he was in the midst of a high-speed assault. His senses were in error, and his nervous system was under stress. It completely messed up the balance of his body. F***CK. His fingers slid diagonally across the hard wall, and then his wrist bones hit the edge of the wall. Next, his head and body collided. Black Beetle's entire body was smashed into the wall of the elevator area. Under the impact of the intense pain, His body's reaction was completely ineffective. He had truly smashed into the wall without the slightest bit of cushioning. Then he slid to the ground, the sunglasses covering his face broken. It was only then that the pain in his head showed signs of subsiding. However, the lingering pain in his fingertips, wrists, head, and torso continued. Compared to the previous wave, the degree of pain was nothing. However, the humiliation of slapping the wall and falling to the ground was like acid splashing into his chest and splashing all over his face. "I'll kill you!" Black Beetle let out a roar, and at the same time he pulled off his already deformed sunglasses and crushed them with his palm. He ignored his chaotic vision and his terrible sense of balance. He supported himself against the wall and struggled to stand up. He waved his arms in a venting manner and controlled the beetles to fly in all directions. But everything he did was useless. He couldn't even touch a hair on Luonan's head. No, he needed to calm down. He needed to calm down. Black Beetle's successive attacks failed, and his emotions of fury and fear interweaved and fluctuated. Finally, there was a trough and Black Beetle seized it. He calmed his mind with all his might, trying to break free from his current terrible state. He leaned against the wall and tried to call out to his temporary partner, "Puppeteer, puppeteer. F***CK. Before Puppeteer could respond, the piercing feeling came again. But this time it didn't bring about intense pain. Instead, it brought about a sound of unknown origin. No, it was telepathy. Black Beetle smashed his hand against the wall. His heart was filled with resentment, but it was also hard for him to escape from fear. Powerhouses with formidable soul strength and proficient in corresponding techniques could indeed transmit telepathic thoughts to others. But most of the time, it was done in a state of peace. In a true battle of life and death, both sides would be mentally tense and highly vigilant. This sort of one-sided telepathic infusion would certainly suffer powerful interference. It was practically impossible to guarantee the completeness and accuracy of the information. But now, the sound that rang in Black Beetle's mind, aside from the initial noise, grew clearer and clearer. Factor analysis. I've learned it before. Luonan's telepathic expression continued the topic they had been discussing before. It was the analysis of the factors of victory and defeat. Black Beetle had undoubtedly brought this up to ridicule Luonan and throw his mind into chaos. And now, Luonan had reversed the topic and stuffed it into Black Beetle's mind bit by bit. My analysis of the factors of victory and superiority is different from yours. Look. What I see, you can't see. What I know you don't know. What I control, you can't compare. What I am at, you can't reach. In the end, I came to a conclusion. My advantage lies outside of your poor imagination. The rough and tidy sentences and information revealed the jerkiness of being pieced together at the last minute. But the poisonous and spicy ridicule followed Luonan's telepathic thoughts, and seeped in layer by layer until it was branded into an imprint. Crack! Black Beetle crushed a molar from his teeth. In the next moment, his emotions sputtered out along with the crushed teeth and the glow of blood. F***CK your ancestors. Black Beetle cursed crudely. His boiling energy and blood were unable to drown out the bone-chilling current in Black Beetle's mind. He knew very well that Luonan's telepathic thoughts weren't powerful. They were just strands. But it was hard for Black Beetle to interfere with Luonan's telepathic thoughts no matter what methods he used to defend. This strand of telepathic thoughts could come and go as they pleased. It wantonly painted and engraved marks on his mental plane. It was as if it had entered an uninhabited realm. It was a perfect match with the feeling of being transparent and bright, unobstructed and unobstructed. Black Beetle was unable to suppress his fear and shame. They were like two steel blades. One blade stabbed in, and the other pulled out. They took turns stabbing and chopping, shredding his dignity beyond recognition. If Luonan exerted just a bit more force, just a bit more. Ding! The sound of the elevator's arrival rang out in his ear. Black Beetle's vision, which had gone haywire due to the intense pain, had recovered somewhat. He was in a trance, and an afterimage flashed past the corner of his eyes. Soon the elevator door closed once more. Luonan didn't make a sound at this time. A series of changes in the details were like a foreshadowing thread. It was abruptly raised, causing Black Beetle's mind to tremble. A certain thought emerged in his mind. If that kid could really finish me off so easily, why would he fight to the point of having his eyes bleed? Why would he spout so much nonsense? Black Beetle didn't have the time to think about what would happen next. He staggered half a step and turned to look at the elevator. But all he saw was the high-speed elevator door closing, and the box had already gone down. Black Beetle's somewhat blurry vision looked all around. He could see the spacious elevator area. He could see the space of the building, but where was Luo Nan's shadow? Yes. Add a bit more force. There's a problem with that kid's interference ability. It's fine if it's a pure mental attack, but it's a method that directly penetrates and affects the structure of body and soul. Luo Nan shouldn't be able to exert any force at all. F***ck me. Black Beetle cursed loudly once more. He struck the elevator door heavily, but all he did was smash a dent in the metal baffle. The elevator's floor display had already begun to change. Black Beetle no longer hesitated. He shook his head forcefully, locking onto the fire escape passageway outside the corridor. He rushed over with a few steps, smashed open the door to the stairwell, and jumped down through the narrow gap in the stairs. At the same time, he contacted his companion once more. "You're a wire manipulator? If you're not dead, say something." "Hiss. That kid is too sneaky. I nearly choked to death in the water. I nearly lost the person in my hands." Puppeteer's curses finally came back. Snake Tongue's protective spell isn't worth a fart. This is his last resort. Black Beetle gritted his teeth and said, "He's out of strength. He's running away. He won't be able to hold on for long. Keep an eye on the elevator. Number 15. I'm keeping an eye." It stopped. Floor 133. Within the crystal pillar, the Devil Ray ran side by side with the high-speed elevator. Black Beetle wasn't bad either. He borrowed strength from his elbow a few times, and his body flipped over. He accurately stopped at the stairwell of the 133rd floor. Then he smashed through the door and exited. A white-collar worker just so happened to be waiting in front of elevator number 15 in the elevator. He was the one who had interrupted the elevator's descent. This white-collar worker was startled by Black Beetle, who suddenly rushed out from the fire escape passageway. He turned his head, and Black Beetle rushed in front of him like a phantom. Black Beetle extended a hand to press down on the white-collar worker's head, fiercely smashing him against the metal door. The white-collar worker's head immediately bled, and he fainted. "Thanks for your help." Black Beetle spat out these words without any sincerity, and his mouth cracked open. His expression grew more and more malevolent, and the aura on his body nearly ignited. The necktie around his neck was like a living snake as it slithered out of the collar of his suit. A certain beetle pattern inexplicably squirmed and protruded on it. It turned into a real beetle, and crawled along the necktie. All Black Beetle needed to do was wrap the necktie around Luo Nan, and stuff the venomous bug down Luo Nan's throat. Who cared if Luo Nan lived or died? The elevator was controlled by an automatic program. It didn't care about the situation outside at all. The elevator door automatically opened after it reached its destination. Black Beetle's body leaned forward, and he was about to make his move. However, the elevator was completely empty. There wasn't a single shadow to be seen. No, there was still a paper man. This palm-sized work of art came from the same school as the other two that Black Beetle had crushed to pieces. It was also fearless and fearless. After pressing the elevator button, it stood upright on the wooden floor of the elevator, assuming a fist stance. "Fuck you." The string of reason in Black Beetle's mind snapped just like that. He simply extended his palm. He ignored the pain in his palm and forcefully crushed the paperman to pieces. He didn't go down. He went back to the viewing platform. The Devil Ray rapidly floated up from the crystal pillar behind Black Beetle. Puppeteer gestured to Black Beetle through the protective glass, indicating for him to go up. This was an extremely normal action, but it was an absolute mockery from Black Beetle's perspective. He still hadn't truly figured out what was going on even now. He just knew that he had been played by Luo Nan once again. It was just like how Luo Nan had left an imprint on the mental plane with strands of telepathy. What I see, you can't see. What I know you don't know. What I control, you can't compare. Where I am, you can't reach it. Ah. Chapter 302. The viewing platform had been bustling with noise and excitement. The tourists at the scene were in a state of chaos due to the devil ray breaking through the heavenly ocean lake. Some left, some alerted the police, and some joined in the fun. But by the time Luo Nan climbed onto the viewing platform once more, all sounds on the platform had been cut off. Several dozen people were lying on various parts of the platform, unconscious. There was no need to doubt that Luo Nan himself was the one who did this. According to the knowledge he had recently learned, clearing the scene before a clash between ability users was a necessary job. A complex and ever-changing scene would cause extra trouble. Of course, there were people who would deliberately create a chaotic situation in order to gain benefits. But Luo Nan estimated that he might not be able to be ruthless in a critical moment. He might as well do things more straightforwardly. He did not forget that there was a puppeteer on the other side, a puppeteer who could control intelligent life forms from afar. If they were to fight again, any clear-headed personnel could create obstacles for him. Luo Nan considered himself to be a rookie when it came to fighting. He had to carry out the experience imparted to him by his seniors in a meticulous manner. However, a certain experienced senior had already been completely stunned by the series of movements he had made earlier. "How did you do it? How did you do it? How did you do it?" Zhang Yingying smacked the steering wheel in excitement. The sharp honking sound was deafening even to Luo Nan's ears. Zhang Yingying had a belly full of words to say during the confrontation between Luo Nan and Black Beetle. She wanted to curse at Black Beetle, but she also wanted to comfort and remind Luo Nan. But she knew very well that Luo Nan was facing an absolutely disadvantageous match. In this life and death juncture, any unforeseen event could lead to a calamity. She could only suppress her worry and force herself to shut her mouth. She even had to worry about Shuele. She didn't want her good intentions to do bad things and disturb Luo Nan's fight against the enemy. This conflict was more torturous than when she was fighting against a powerful enemy. She could no longer hold it in when the overall situation was decided. She let her belly full of depression explode. Zhang Yingying's pleasant surprise also spurred on Shuele, who was climbing the stairs with great difficulty. He took a few deep breaths and praised, "Nanster, beautifully done. Leave the rest to me. I'll be right there." Luo Nan strolled along the edge of the viewing platform and laughed. "There's plenty of time. Slow down a bit. Don't get beaten up before you can even stand firm." Phew, don't worry. No problem." Shuele was worried that he would affect Luo Nan unfavorably just now. He rushed upwards with all his might, and he even had to hold his breath. Even though he had already obtained the talisman and connected the inside and the outside, he was still quite tired. Of course Luo Nan was fine. That was stronger than anything else. It didn't take long for Shuele to adjust his state of mind when he was relaxed. Hey Luo, I'm asking you too." Although Zhang Yingying was complaining, her excitement did not diminish at all. She still blasted the car horn loudly. "Tell me, how did you make the bug so miserable? That guy is an egomaniac, yes, but he is definitely not a fool." Luo Nan was able to feel the pure joy from the bottom of Zhang Yingying's heart. Black Beetle could be considered an old acquaintance of hers, but Zhang Yingying stood firmly by his side at this moment. Her position was clear and unwavering. Luo Nan enjoyed this sense of recognition. He thought for a moment and replied seriously, "Correct your mentality, use your advantage and kill them with one strike. Unfortunately, there's still a problem with my interference ability. I can only buy some time." Kill them with one strike. Crag Burst must have taught you this, right? Yes, Luo Nan admitted. It was strange to say that the classes he took these past few days, whether it was He Yuan, Bamboo Pole, or Paper Cut, all leaned towards the level of knowledge and technique. They rarely touched upon strategies to deal with the enemy. Crag Burst's teaching plan was delayed due to the problem with Luo Nan's interference ability. Crag Burst had a belly full of energy. He contacted Luo Nan a few times, but every long conversation revolved around actual combat. He imparted some practical experience to Luo Nan. Crag Burst told Luo Nan that one's mentality was the most important when dealing with an enemy. It didn't matter if one was calm or hot-blooded. One must find the most suitable mentality for oneself. It might not be the most effective or the most thorough, but it was definitely the most stable. It could withstand even more variables. In short, this was an unshakable conviction. It could only be established upon the greatest, the most irreplaceable advantage. To put it in extreme terms, a person who possessed this mentality would think like this: enemies can defeat me, but they will never be able to defeat what I am good at. Luonan used this principle to first confirm his own domain of advantage. Hey, you really are stupid and bold. Crag burst and you aren't the same type, okay? Zhang Yingying had a deep understanding of Crag burst's temperament. The more Crag burst thought so, the more she found it hard to believe. Luonan, you're a mage. Can your small body handle playing with the warrior's conviction is my life? Also, your advantages? Mental senses, attacks, and so on. Are they useful? Why must it be these things? Luonan felt a bit helpless. Whether it was Zhang Yingying or Black Beetle, they both wholeheartedly attributed Luonan's advantages to the range of his senses and mental attacks. But Luonan never believed this. There were many powerful people in the world. No matter how outstanding Luonan's mental senses were, no matter how fierce the human-faced arachnid siege hammer was, there would certainly be people who were stronger than him in terms of the precision and range of his senses and the intensity of his mental attacks. They might even be much stronger than him. This kind of superficial advantage would sooner or later be directly destroyed by others. His advantages could only be established upon a certain irreplaceable and unique element. You still have cards up your sleeve? Zhang Yingying was a bit skeptical. She felt that she had a better understanding of Luonan. She really couldn't imagine what kind of cards Luonan could play in a short amount of time to play with Black Beetle, until he wanted to die. I heard that you're learning under teacher Shuelei. To be able to teach a disciple like Shuelei, you must be an extraordinary person. But it's only been a few days. Hey Shuelei kid, what kind of quick mastery did your master teach you? Shuelei had already caught his breath during the time Luonan and Zhang Yingying were conversing. His breathing became much smoother. He answered, "It's the heart lantern of the eye's orifice. But this isn't a quick mastery technique. It's a technique for the eyes. How could it be?" Oh my. Zhang Yingying came to a realization at nearly the same time. She didn't have the time to ask Luonan about the profoundness of victory. She spoke in an urgent tone. Black Beetle said that the blood vessels in your eyes exploded. Did you use some sort of forbidden move? How are you now? I'm fine. Luonan used his knuckles to lightly rub the corners of his eyes. The pain in his eyes was still there. The blood was still flowing out, but it was a bit lighter. The more he played it down, the more Zhang Yingying didn't dare to treat it lightly. Luonan smashed his car horn again, but his excitement and joy had faded away. All that was left was annoyance and worry. A kid will always be a kid. His eyes. How can you mess around in this place? Hey, didn't your teacher warn you when he passed on his skills? Shuelei was gloomy. The heart lantern of the eye's orifice is a technique of grinding. It's a gradual method. There's no such thing as a forbidden move. I see you. Shuelei had already pounced to the 140th floor by now. He could see him with his eyes, and he was waving at Luonan. Even if Luonan had to climb the remaining 2 floors, he would still be a step ahead of his 2 enemies. It could be said that Luonan was already in an invincible position. Luonan knew that his eyes were a bit damaged from forcefully integrating the heart lantern of the eye's orifice and the domain of mental senses. He had already surpassed his limits. It would be best for him to close his eyes and rest right now. However, he didn't want things to end like this. Luonan held onto the protective glass at the edge of the platform. His gaze naturally cast far away. The sky grew darker and darker. Cloud City Water Village was the main part of the large living area. There was also the area of Acumen College that was even further away. All of them lit up with lights, separating blurry shadows and silhouettes. This scene was somewhat similar to the Star River scene formed from Luonan's mental senses. It was just that the blurry and turbid areas of the Star River scene were mostly interference formed by the power of ability users. The ones before Luonan's eyes were just pure light that couldn't reach them. Before today, Luo Nan had tried many times to disperse the turbid clouds and dark mist in the Star River scene. He had grasped the various details of the life sketches with greater precision, but he had never been able to achieve it. But just now, Luo Nan had successfully sent a beam of light into the deepest parts of Black Beetle's body and soul structure when he faced Black Beetle. He had drawn the clearest life sketch, and he had seen through all the weaknesses of Black Beetle's life level. Only then was he able to seize the initiative and play with Black Beetle in the palm of his hand. That beam of light originated from, or at least partially originated from, the heart lantern of the eye's orifice. The heart lantern of the eye's orifice was not the cornerstone of Luo Nan's beliefs, but this technique imparted to him by Gym Master Xiao undoubtedly played an extremely crucial role. Normally, the heart lantern took into account the functions of storing and guiding water. It carved out the spiritual orifice of the body and activated Luo Nan's soul strength. And in practical use, it hung in the air, reflecting and foreseeing the dynamic trajectory of the material plane. It complemented Luo Nan's mental senses. When viewing an object or drawing a scene, if one angle was not clear, one could often find new discoveries by switching to a different angle. By comparing the two, one could see even more. It was impossible for an independent mental senses and a pure heart lantern of the eye's orifice to achieve the miraculous effect of wind passing through gaps and light illuminating the earth. But when the two were combined, Luo Nan used his mental senses to form a Star River scene, and he used the heart lantern of the eye's orifice to sweep away the turbid clouds and dark mist. The mental and material planes coupled information, intersecting and positioning, formed a wisp of gentle wind and a beam of light. It saw through the truth hidden beneath the thick and chaotic surface. Yes, coupling. Borrowing this definition really made one's body and mind happy. Luo Nan closed his eyes and then opened them again. The light of his mental senses could already illuminate the life structure of ability users. Could it be that he was unable to illuminate the purely dusky void of the world? At this very moment, Luo Nan used a new and refined clairvoyance method to observe the void. He gazed at the silhouette of the jungle at the edge of the world. The increasingly dusky color of the sky could not obstruct him. The information on the material plane and the mental plane corresponded and connected once more. They rubbed against each other, bursting forth with a marvelous spiritual light. The light was cast into the reservoir of the heart lantern of the eye's orifice. Then it passed through the pupil, passed through the void, passed through the chaotic silhouette of the jungle, and hung above the target. The surface of the lake was like a small mirror amidst the withered leaves of the jungle. On one side was gear. The exquisite building carried a bit of a rusty color. The long river that pierced through the forest flowed through its other corner. It made a turn at the end of one's field of view, extending into the distance. It was as if it had been washed away by time for many years. When time moved, all things moved. Chapter 303. Luo Nan quietly gazed at the world before him. He remained motionless for a long time. Even when Shui Lei flipped onto the viewing platform and called out to him, Luo Nan did not respond. Shui Lei was a bit frightened. From his perspective, Luo Nan's face was stained with blood and tears. It was painted into a devilish face. Blood seeped from the corners of Luo Nan's eyes, and Luo Nan's eyes were completely red. Luo Nan should be sent to the hospital immediately. Hey, which one of you two is going to say something? Zhang Yingying, who had been ignored for a long time, slapped the steering wheel. Sistering, I think Nanster's state isn't right. Shui Lei was flustered. He rushed to ask Zhang Yingying for advice. However, Luo Nan's calm state of mind was very similar to Gym Master Xiao's usual demeanor. Shui Lei subconsciously lowered his voice, afraid of disturbing Luo Nan. Before he could receive a response from Zhang Yingying, Luo Nan's voice suddenly rang in his ear. The breath of heaven and earth may not be impossible to find. These words came out of nowhere. Shui Lei was stunned, but he felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. He carefully pondered a few times before remembering that this was related to the Gym Master's fate theory. He had spoken of this to Luo Nan some time ago. However, the Gym Master's original intention was to say that the world was vast, and the human strength was minuscule. Cultivators needed to constantly work hard and be attentive in all aspects. Only then could they borrow the power of heaven and earth for their own use. What stood out was that the mind was before the energy, and the energy was before the strength. The core of Luo Nan's words seemed to have changed. Shui Lei did not quite understand Luo Nan's thoughts, but he was worried about Luo Nan's state. He could only ask cautiously, "Nanster?" The flow and operation of the river, the existence and destruction of the forest, all have rules. They form their own systems. They can be said to have their own formats. It is these small formats that are like sets of gears naturally formed by the heavens. They are joined together to form the large format of heaven and earth. Luo Nan had already entered a state of mind. He continued speaking. From the perspective of formatting theory, the heaven and earth format is vast and boundless. It is rich in layers and it is constantly changing. It is like a production line assembled from complex machines. Millions of gears operate in sequence, transmitting power layer by layer. Here we go again. Zhang Yingying could not help but groan. Was the scene of Luo Nan talking to himself? Luo Nan was talking to Zhang Yingying. It was like a dream. She never expected that Luo Nan would purposely oppose Zhang Yingying. While Zhang Yingying was grumbling on the other side, Luo Nan suddenly came out from his extreme self-centered state. He sought interaction and posed a question to the two. The heaven and earth format's production line won't stop working. Under such circumstances, to insert a self-made gear into the production line and make it seamless, how do I do it? The answer is coupling. Luo Nan was like a child striving to show off. He impatiently announced the answer. A smile blossomed on his bloody, tear-stained face. It was extraordinarily bright and splendid. Shui Lei was stupefied once more. He didn't quite understand Luo Nan's words, but he had never seen Luo Nan have such a bright and clear appearance ever since they became acquainted. Indeed, Luo Nan was extremely delighted. The deeper his observations of gear went, the more he fell head over heels for the mysteries within. This gear building was embedded within the heaven and earth format. Rumbling production lines were added to the mix. They were precise and orderly, seamless, and there wasn't the slightest hint of artificiality. It was as if this was the natural quality of the world. If Luo Nan hadn't grasped the rhythm of heaven and earth breathing, how could this have happened? From this, Luo Nan was able to confirm an earlier guess. His mother's coupling design was closely related to formatting theory. It was like a kind of applied explanation. It demonstrated to the world how to apply formatting theory to the plane of reality. And this tangible achievement belonged to his mother. Formatting theory? Gear? Shui Lei finally found the key words in Luo Nan's words. He tried to follow the direction of Luo Nan's gaze. Under the dusky sky, Shui Lei gazed into the distance with his eyesight. He was able to make out the rough outline of the distant forest and the landmark building, but that was it. Nanster, you can see gear from here? Shui Lei was skeptical of Luo Nan's eyesight, but he was more worried. The burden of exhausting his eyesight was far too heavy in Luo Nan's current state. I can see it. It's so beautiful. Luo Nan's voice was fleeting, just like the marvelous scene before his eyes. It was impossible to touch upon the hidden mysteries of gear with the naked eye, or mental sensing clairvoyance. Only the two modes of vision and mental sensing could realize information coupling and cross-positioning. Only then could one touch upon the truth behind the surface. One could look at the incorporeal law and order, silently transforming and nurturing in the void of heaven and earth. Luo Nan greedily watched all of this. He couldn't see enough no matter what. Shui Lei stomped his feet anxiously to the side. He was unable to understand the world within Luo Nan's eyes, but he was still able to grasp a thing or two about the energy emanating from Luo Nan's body. From what he understood, the energy of Luo Nan's eye's orifice was far too vigorous. It was like a wildly growing plant. It was a seedling before, but it had become a towering tree in the blink of an eye. Where did this terrifying driving force come from? Was there enough momentum? Could the structural strength of the skeleton-shaped orifice hold up? A single mishap, and he would be crippled. All right. Find the gym master. The first person Shui Lei thought of when his life was at stake was still the gym master. But right when he planned to exit the three-way communications and make a call to find the gym master, Luo Nan suddenly took a deep breath. His arm was pressed against the glass of the protective fence. His head was facing down, and his eyelids drooped. He took the initiative to stop his incomprehensible gaze into the distance. He appeared extremely tired. Shuelei rushed over. "Nanster, are you okay? Why don't we take a break first?" Luo Nan didn't open his eyes. He just laughed. "I might be in a bit of a situation." "Ha! A kind of order is like a gear. Two kinds of orders are coupled, and the gears bite together. If there's no precise design to connect them, and the difference in volume between the two sides is too large, it will be very troublesome." Shuelei was stupefied. Zhang Yingying spoke hatefully from the other side. "Don't worry about him. He's incurable." Luo Nan understood the different forms of concern and worry from his friends, but it was hard for him to continue explaining the state of his body. This was because it involved his deep secrets. The coupling relationship formed between the heart lantern of the eye's orifice and mental senses was essentially the beginning of Luo Nan's physical body cultivation. It was already in contact with the sizable formatting theory system. They could couple, but friction and collisions were unavoidable. 10 days of cultivation and 60 electric shocks to the heart lantern had clearly revealed the dangerous factors involved. Moreover, the situation had changed once again, and the trend was not good. It was like the thunderclouds high in the sky. Charged particles interweaved. Something was bound to happen. Powerful light suddenly flashed, and the external neuron was like a demon dragon that roared through the wind and thunder. It appeared in the palace of his brain, shaking off its body of electricity to bombard the heart lantern. The 61st time was stronger than any other time. This was a direct collision between the external neuron and the structure of the eye's orifice. Luo Nan had a premonition in his heart, but the intensity of this collision exceeded his expectations. His body suddenly tightened, and his mind became dizzy. He seemed to hear the sound of his eyeballs shattering in his daze. The impact his brain nerves received was transmitted to every part of his body through the tightly interwoven nervous system. His muscles, bones, blood, and fascia all twitched reflexively. Luo Nan curled up his body and crouched down. He extended his hand to cover his eyes, and tears flowed uncontrollably from his eyes. His eyeballs heated up, and his eyelids twitched wildly. It was extremely uncomfortable. Shuelei's cry of alarm and Zhang Yingying's panicked shouts entered his ears. The two were in chaos. Yet Luo Nan's thoughts became more and more clear amidst the pain. He could even feel a slight change in the touch of his hand covering his eyes. It was not blood mixed with tears. Instead, it was more viscous. The intense and powerful pressure caused greater damage to his body. "This is nothing. I know what's going on." Luo Nan calmly comforted himself. The results were very good. There was probably nothing that could shake his heart more than the discovery of the mysteries of gear in a short amount of time. Even though Luo Nan couldn't see, he still accurately grabbed Shuelei's outstretched arm and whispered, "I'm fine. Someone's coming from behind." Luo Nan had just finished speaking when the sound of water surged from the direction of the heavenly ocean lake. It was mixed with the oppressive sound of an explosion. An enormous devil ray soared into the sky and landed heavily, raising large waves in the pool. At the same time, a figure leaped up gracefully, jumping onto the frame structure propped up above the side of the pool. The figure wore a black diving suit, revealing the strong and sturdy lines of a human body. His face wore enormous diving goggles, and he had no intention of taking them off. This was one of the members of the investigation team sent by headquarters, Puppeteer. Shuelei turned around, protecting Luo Nan behind him. His eyes were vigilant. Puppeteer didn't express anything. He relied on his good position to look down from above. His eyes behind the diving goggles continued to size up the two people at the edge of the viewing platform. Especially Luo Nan. Puppeteer was very interested in Luo Nan's painful crouch. Only a few seconds passed, and two elevators arrived not far from the edge of the heavenly ocean lake. The first to come out was Black Beetle. His sunglasses were thrown away, but his face was still a bit green. His cold and sinister gaze pierced over, ignoring Shuelei. His gaze only fell on Luo Nan's arched back. Lei wasn't the least bit polite to this person. He glared fiercely at Luo Nan, but he was still a bit nervous in his heart. Luo Nan's condition was terrible to the extreme. Not only did Black Beetle have to split his attention to protect Luo Nan, but he also had to defend against 2 attacks at the same time. Oh right, there was still the other elevator. Could it be the enemy's backup? The metal door of the other elevator opened just as Luo Nan was having a headache. Lei was stupefied for a moment. It took him great effort to correct the direction of his perception, and he matched the identity of the person. Senior Sister Tian? The person who walked out of the elevator was none other than Tian Si. This dainty and beautiful senior sister had a deathly pale complexion. Her steps were stiff, and her upper body was in a strange posture. She crossed her hands and clutched her neck. Her strength was quite heavy, and her fingers had already sunk deep into her delicate skin. The enormous pressure caused her mouth to slightly open, and her vermilion lips to tremble. This scene was bizarre and absurd. Due to the existence of self-protection mechanisms, it was impossible for normal people to use this sort of method to strangle themselves to death. However, this was not necessarily the case in a situation where one was under the control of extraordinary power. Lei gnashed his teeth as he watched. You bunch of people. You guys are members of the society. No one paid attention to him. Puppeteer spoke from above the pool, but he was pointing at Tian Si. His tone was gentle and without any distinguishing features. It was as if he was chatting normally. We've met again after a short separation, beautiful. Do you want to say something? Tian Si's lips trembled. Lei's eyes and ears were sharp, but he could still hear her teeth chattering. She could be considered strong if she didn't have a mental breakdown after such a bizarre and savage method fell on her body. With great difficulty, Tian Si managed to squeeze out a few trembling words from her throat. I've been taking the stairs all this time. Everyone on the viewing platform was stupefied. Only Luo Nan, who had fallen to one knee amidst the pain, laughed in spite of himself. Though his laughter was a bit shaky, he didn't turn his head. He just raised an arm. Chapter 304. Luo Nan quietly gazed at the world before him. He remained motionless for a long time. Even when Lei flipped onto the viewing platform and called out to him, Luo Nan did not respond. Lei was a bit frightened. From his perspective, Luo Nan's face was stained with blood and tears. It was painted into a devilish face. Blood seeped from the corners of Luo Nan's eyes, and Luo Nan's eyes were completely red. Luo Nan should be sent to the hospital immediately. Hey, which one of you two is going to say something? Zhang Yingying, who had been ignored for a long time, slapped the steering wheel. Sistering, I think Nanster's state isn't right. Lei was flustered. He rushed to ask Zhang Yingying for advice. However, Luo Nan's calm state of mind was very similar to Gym Master Xiu's usual demeanor. Lei subconsciously lowered his voice, afraid of disturbing Luo Nan. Before he could receive a response from Zhang Yingying, Luo Nan's voice suddenly rang in his ear. The breath of heaven and earth may not be impossible to find. These words came out of nowhere. Lei was stunned, but he felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. He carefully pondered a few times before remembering that this was related to the Gym Master's fate theory. He had spoken of this to Luo Nan some time ago. However, the Gym Master's original intention was to say that the world was vast, and the human strength was minuscule. Cultivators needed to constantly work hard and be attentive in all aspects. Only then could they borrow the power of heaven and earth for their own use. What stood out was that the mind was before the energy, and the energy was before the strength. The core of Luo Nan's words seemed to have changed. Lei did not quite understand Luo Nan's thoughts, but he was worried about Luo Nan's state. He could only ask cautiously, Nanster? The flow and operation of the river, the existence and destruction of the forest, all have rules. They form their own systems. They can be said to have their own formats. It is these small formats that are like sets of gears naturally formed by the heavens. They are joined together to form the large format of heaven and earth. Luo Nan had already entered the state of mind. He continued speaking. From the perspective of formatting theory, the heaven and earth format is vast and boundless. It is rich in layers and changes. It is like a production line assembled from complex machines. Tens of thousands of gears operate in sequence, transmitting power layer by layer. Here we go again. Zhang Yingying could not help but groan. The scene of her talking to herself was simply a replica of that night at Frost River reality. Unfriendly thoughts and concepts assaulted her face. She never expected that Luo Nan would purposely oppose Zhang Yingying. While Zhang Yingying was grumbling on the other side, Luo Nan suddenly came out from his extreme self-centered state. He sought interaction and posed a question to the two. The heaven and earth format's production line won't stop working. Under such circumstances, to insert a self-made gear into the production line and make it seamless, how do I do it? The answer is coupling. Luo Nan was like a child striving to show off. He impatiently announced the answer. A smile blossomed on his bloody, tear-stained face. It was extraordinarily bright and splendid. Shuelei was stupefied once more. He didn't quite understand Luo Nan's words, but he had never seen Luo Nan have such a bright and clear appearance ever since they became acquainted. Indeed, Luo Nan was extremely delighted. The deeper his observations of gear went, the more he fell head over heels for the mysteries within. This gear building was embedded within the heaven and earth format. Rumbling production lines were added to the mix. They were precise and orderly, seamless, and there wasn't the slightest hint of artificiality. It was as if this was the natural quality of the world. If Luo Nan hadn't grasped the rhythm of heaven and earth breathing, how could this have happened? From this, Luo Nan was able to confirm an earlier guess. His mother's coupling design was closely related to formatting theory. It was like a kind of applied explanation. It demonstrated to the world how to apply formatting theory to the plane of reality. And this tangible achievement belonged to his mother. Formatting theory? Gear? Shuelei finally found the key words in Luo Nan's words. He tried to follow the direction of Luo Nan's gaze. He gazed into the distance with his eyesight under the dusky sky. He was able to make out the rough outlines of the distant forest and the landmark building, but that was it. Nanster, you can see gear from here? Shuelei was skeptical of the level of Luo Nan's eyesight, but he was more worried. The burden of exhausting his eyesight in Luo Nan's current state was far too heavy. I can see it. It's so beautiful. Luo Nan's voice was fleeting, just like the marvelous scene before his eyes. It was impossible to touch upon the hidden mysteries of gear with the naked eye or mental sensing clairvoyance. Only the two modes of vision and mental sensing could realize information coupling and cross-positioning. Only then could one touch upon the truth behind the surface. One could see the formless law and order, silently transforming and nurturing in the void of heaven and earth. Luo Nan greedily watched all of this. He couldn't see enough no matter what. Shuelei stomped his feet anxiously to the side. He was unable to understand the world within Luo Nan's eyes, but he was still able to grasp a bit of the energy emanating from Luo Nan's body. From what he understood, the energy of Luo Nan's eye's orifice was far too vigorous. It was like a wildly growing plant. It was a seedling before, but it had become a towering tree in the blink of an eye. Where did this terrifying driving force come from? Was the after effect enough? Could the structural strength of the skeleton-shaped orifice hold up? A single mishap and he would be crippled. All right. Find the gym master. The first person Shuelei thought of when his life was at stake was still the gym master. But right when he planned to exit the three-way communications and make a call to find the gym master, Luo Nan suddenly took a deep breath. His arm was pressed against the glass of the protective fence. His head was facing down, and his eyelids drooped. He took the initiative to stop his incomprehensible gaze into the distance. He appeared extremely tired. Shuelei rushed over. Nanster, are you okay? Why don't we take a break first? Luo Nan didn't open his eyes. He just laughed. I might be in a bit of a situation. Ha! A kind of order is like a gear. Two kinds of orders are coupled, and the gears bite together. If there's no precise design to connect them, and the difference in volume between the two is too large, then it will be very troublesome. Shuelei was stupefied. Zhang Yingying spoke hatefully from the other side. Don't worry about him. He's incurable. Luo Nan understood the different forms of concern and worry from his friends, but it was hard for him to continue explaining the situation with his body. This was because it involved his deep secrets. The coupling relationship formed between the heart lantern of the eye's orifice and mental senses was essentially the contact between Luo Nan's body cultivation and the sizable formatting theory system. They could couple, but friction and collisions were unavoidable. 10 days of cultivation and 60 electric shocks to the heart lantern had clearly revealed the dangerous factors involved. Moreover, the situation had changed once again, and the trend was not good. It was like the thunderclouds high in the sky. Charged particles interweaved. Something was bound to happen. A powerful light suddenly flashed, and the external neuron was like a demon dragon that roared through the wind and thunder. It appeared in the palace of Luo Nan's brain, shaking off a body of electricity to bombard the heart lantern. The 61st time was stronger than any other time. This was a direct collision between the external neuron and the structure of the eye's orifice. Luo Nan had a premonition in his mind, but the intensity of this collision exceeded his expectations. His body suddenly tightened, and his mind became dizzy. He seemed to hear the sound of his eyeballs shattering in his daze. The impact his brain nerves received was transmitted to every part of his body through his tightly interwoven nervous system. His muscles, bones, blood, and fascia all twitched reflexively. Luo Nan curled up his body and crouched down. He reached out his hand to cover his eyes, and tears flowed uncontrollably from his eyes. His eyeballs heated up, and his eyelids twitched wildly. It was extremely uncomfortable. Shui Lei's cry of alarm and Zhang Yingying's panicked shouts entered his ears. The two were in chaos. Luo Nan's thoughts became more and more clear amidst the pain. He could even feel a slight change in the touch of his hand covering his eyes. It wasn't blood mixed with tears. Instead, it was more viscous. The intense and powerful pressure caused greater damage to his body. This is nothing. I know what's going on. Luo Nan calmly comforted himself. The results were very good. There was probably nothing that could shake his heart more than the discovery of the mysteries of gear in a short amount of time. Even though his eyes couldn't see, he still accurately grabbed Shui Lei's outstretched arm and whispered, "I'm fine. Someone's coming from behind." The sound of water surged from the direction of the heavenly ocean lake, just as Luo Nan finished speaking. It was mixed with a muffled explosion. An enormous devil ray soared into the sky and landed heavily, raising large waves in the pool. At the same time, a figure leaped up gracefully, jumping onto the frame structure propped up above the side of the pool. The figure wore a black diving suit, revealing the strong and sturdy lines of a human body. His face wore enormous diving goggles, and he had no intention of taking them off. This was one of the members of the investigation team sent by headquarters, Puppeteer. Shui Lei turned around, protecting Luo Nan behind him. His eyes were vigilant. Puppeteer didn't express anything. He relied on his good position to look down from above. His eyes behind the diving goggles continued to size up the two people at the edge of the viewing platform. Especially Luo Nan. Puppeteer was very interested in Luo Nan's painful crouching state. Only a few seconds passed, and two elevators arrived not far from the edge of the heavenly ocean lake. The first to come out was Black Beetle. His sunglasses were thrown away, but his face was still a bit green. His cold and sinister gaze pierced over. He ignored Shui Lei, only landing on Luo Nan's arched back. Shui Lei wasn't the least bit polite to this person. He glared fiercely at Luo Nan, but he was still a bit nervous in his heart. Luo Nan's condition was terrible to the extreme. Not only did Black Beetle have to split his attention to protect Luo Nan, but he also had to defend against attacks from two sides at the same time. Oh right, there was still an elevator. Could it be the enemy's backup? The metal door of the other elevator opened just as Shui Lei was having a headache. Shui Lei was stupefied for a moment, but he managed to correct the direction of his understanding with great difficulty. Senior Sister Tian? The person who walked out of the elevator was none other than Tian Si. This dainty and beautiful senior sister had a deathly pale complexion. Her steps were stiff, and her upper body was in a strange posture. She crossed her hands and clutched her neck. Her strength was quite heavy, and her fingers had already sunk deep into her delicate skin. The enormous pressure caused her mouth to open slightly, and her vermilion lips to tremble. This scene was bizarre and absurd. Due to the existence of self-protection mechanisms, it was impossible for normal people to use this sort of method to strangle themselves to death. However, this was not necessarily the case in a situation where one was under the control of extraordinary power. Shuelei gnashed his teeth as he watched. "You bunch of people. You guys are members of the society." No one paid attention to him. Puppeteer spoke from above the pool, but he was pointing at Tianxi. His tone was gentle and without any distinguishing features. It was as if he was chatting normally. "We've met again after a short separation, beautiful. Do you want to say something?" Tianxi's lips trembled. Shuelei's eyes and ears were sharp, but he could still hear her teeth chattering. She could be considered strong if she didn't have a mental breakdown after such a bizarre and savage method fell on her body. With great difficulty, Tianxi managed to squeeze out a few trembling words from her throat. "I've been taking the stairs all this time." Everyone on the viewing platform was stupefied. Only Luo Nan, who had fallen to one knee amidst the pain, laughed in spite of himself, though his laughter was a bit shaky. He didn't turn his head. He just raised an arm. "It's my fault." Chapter 305. On the entire viewing platform, only Luo Nan was able to understand the feeling of grievance in Tianxi's words. She really did follow Luo Nan's instructions. She walked down the stairs of the fire escape. No matter how tired she was, she didn't ask for help from the elevator. She stayed far away from the central crystal pillar, but she was still unable to escape Puppeteer's demonic claws. She was controlled and taken hostage. Of course, the grievance was secondary. Tianxi felt more fear. She was an intelligent person. She guessed that the current momentum of victory and defeat between the two sides from the choices made by Puppeteer and Black Beetle should have been reversed. Otherwise, there would be no meaning in her being a hostage. Her value to the kidnappers was to threaten Luo Nan. But what value did she have to Luo Nan? Why would he give up the great situation of reversing the hopeless situation and take the risk to rescue her? This situation nearly made Tianxi fall into despair. However, she could only place her hopes on Luo Nan. She was all the more afraid that Luo Nan would turn a blind eye because of the inconvenience. So her expression of grievance came from her heart, but it was more or less a deliberate expression. She only hoped that she could arouse a bit of Luo Nan's understanding and sympathy, so that she could redeem a bit more of a chance at survival. Luo Nan's raised arm gave Tianxi a bit of comfort. However, her reaction couldn't satisfy others. Puppeteer sighed in the air above Heavenly Ocean Lake. He slid his body to the middle of the pool's edge along the frame structure above the pool. He crooked his finger at Tianxi. Tianxi's feet involuntarily leaned towards the swimming pool. When she got closer, her left thumb pressed against her lower jaw. She violently turned her face around and lifted it up slightly, forcing her to look up at the master, who currently controlled her life. "Come, let's work together." Puppeteer crouched down. He even lowered a hand to indicate to Tianxi. His diving goggles covered half of his face. His mouth cracked open, revealing his snow-white teeth in a smile. The shape of Puppeteer's face wasn't bad. He had the flavor of a sunny man, but Tianxi was completely drowned in fear under this smile. She could only watch helplessly. She was like a marionette. Her entire body was under the control of someone else. She extended a hand upward, connecting it with Puppeteer's palm. Then, she was pulled up. Under the rough movements, she felt that her arm was about to be dislocated. She couldn't help but let out a painful groan. But the sound was quickly squeezed back. Puppeteer used his own hand in place of Tianxi's. He forcefully grabbed her neck and carefully sized her up face to face. He was very satisfied with Tianxi's complexion, which had turned from deathly pale to flushed from fear and suffocation. He took a deep breath in her hair and savored the delicate fragrance of her hair. At the same time he laughed. "Beauty, whether you're willing or not, we're one." Tianxi was really about to suffocate. Right now, She had regained some control over her body, but she could only helplessly move Puppeteer's steel-like arm. She struggled with her legs. Apart from that, she couldn't do anything else. Puppeteer lifted Tianxi's slender neck. His footsteps were light as he returned to his original position. During this process, Tianxi struggled with her hands and feet at first, but she quickly ran out of strength. Her body went limp, and her eyes were filled with despair. At this time, Puppeteer's gaze had already turned to Luo Nan. Even though Luo Nan was still half-squatting at the edge of the viewing platform, not even turning his body around, Puppeteer's eyes behind his diving goggles were firmly fixed on Luo Nan. He wouldn't relax in the slightest. As for Black Beetle, he stood in front of Heavenly Ocean Lake with a cold expression. He blocked the only path to rescue Tianxi. Even so, Puppeteer still felt that it wasn't too safe. He continued, "I must admit that we underestimated your abilities, Mr. Luo Nan. We underestimated your transcendent mental attack. Our plans were ruined. So we learned our lesson and decided to calmly chat and discuss things. We'll solve the problem. For the sake of ensuring this, I specifically made a safety wire. Thank you for your cooperation, Beauty. Right now, I have a bit of a connection with her on the mental plane. Any experience I receive will be fairly shared with her. In terms of endurance, I have some self-confidence that I can surpass this delicate beauty. An attack that's enough to defeat me has a high chance of defeating the other first. So right now, I can only hope that the relationship between the two of you is sufficiently close." Having said this, Puppeteer turned to look at Tianxi. "Speaking of which, Beauty, have you two slept together yet?" "No. That's better if you haven't. Perhaps Mr. Luo Nan will feel that it's a pity." Puppeteer obviously hoped to receive a response from Luo Nan after his excellent performance, but Shuele only sent him a gaze of loathing. The main character, Luo Nan, still maintained his original posture. He had even retracted his apologetic arm. It was unknown whether it was due to the effects of his injuries, or whether it was due to his disdain for his defeated subordinate. Puppeteer sighed. He had no choice but to urge Luo Nan, "Mr. Luo Nan, it's best if we don't waste any more time. Even if the police are idiots, they should come back to their senses by now. Everyone should resolve this as soon as possible and go home. That would be excellent." Luo Nan still didn't respond. "PSK, are all youngsters this cold these days? Then allow me to warm things up first. I'll play a little trick with my temporary beauty partner." A smile returned to Puppeteer's face. He raised his arm horizontally, placing Tianxi above the water's surface. After breaking through the tempered glass at the bottom of the pool, the Heavenly Ocean Lake will probably be the deepest swimming pool in the world. It's 800 meters deep. I have a feeling that the beauty partner next to me has pretty good swimming skills. She's enough to deal with those cute little kids, middle-aged friends, and older friends. Why don't we give it a try first? Tianxi had already given up on struggling, but as Puppeteer's words entered her ears, the strength in his hand mercilessly increased. He forcefully squeezed out what little potential she had, forcing her to struggle with her hands and feet. She was unable to speak, and her originally beautiful pupils rolled upwards. "Excellent. Beautiful, you have quite the camera feel." Puppeteer laughed even more happily. His hand casually swayed a few times, causing Tianxi to struggle even more painfully. Let us officially begin. The first act of the hero saving the beauty, action. The water of the Heavenly Ocean Lake splashed as soon as Puppeteer's words fell. A terrifying shadow broke through the water's surface, leaping 6 to 7 meters into the air. It brushed past the soles of Tianxi's feet, and its long tail lashed out. It took the opportunity to slice off one of Tianxi's high heels, and the other fell down amidst her struggle. "Shuzha? My other partner is quite protective of the fairer sex. However, I'll tell it that the next step is your delicate little feet. Do you want them to be symmetrical?" The ice-cold water vapor and the scorching killing intent assaulted her at the same time. Tianxi could no longer hold herself back, and tears poured down her face. She cried noiselessly just like that, and the barrier of her willpower completely collapsed. At the edge of the viewing platform, Luo Nan's eyes were still closed, but his eyelids trembled twice. He exerted strength with great difficulty to support himself against the protective glass. He slowly stood up, turned around and faced the two fiends head-on, but he still didn't open his mouth. Black Beetle turned his head and locked gazes with Puppeteer when he saw Luo Nan's situation. Both of them thought of the word backlash in their minds. Black Beetle then chuckled. "You're also trash as a director. Are we still in the era of silent films? You're just doing voiceovers. Where's the dubbing?" Puppeteer didn't mind. He gave a light praise. "Good idea." Puppeteer loosened his grip a bit as soon as he finished speaking, allowing Tianxi's sobs to pass through her airway with great difficulty. They squeezed out strands by strands. Tianxi's oppressive breath of despair pierced through the sound of the heavenly ocean lake's water. It entered Shui Lei's ears intermittently, causing his teeth to creak. However, Zhang Yingying had given him orders time and time again that he absolutely could not act impulsively. This was to prevent Black Beetle and Puppeteer from taking advantage of a loophole. Shui Lei had no other choice but to grit his teeth. Luo Nan, on the other hand, maintained a calm expression even though his eyes were closed and blood was flowing. He could even be said to be callous. The situation was still deadlocked. Puppeteer had a big headache when faced with this master who wouldn't be moved by force or persuasion. In the end, time stood on the opposing side in Xia City. Puppeteer could only confront Luo Nan while using his own channels to contact him and ask for advice. A few seconds later he snapped his fingers. "How about this? Let's change methods. Beauty, don't cry. Let me ask you something. This callous boy in front of us, were you on a date just now? Now he's crying his eyes blind. Why? Can you tell me?" Tianxi's willpower had collapsed. She thought she was dead. How could she respond? Puppeteer shook his head. "How about this? For the sake of fairness, I'll tell you a secret first. Our other partner." As he spoke, the mutant devil ray broke through the surface of the water once more. It leaped into the air, but it didn't fall according to the laws of physics. Instead, it resisted gravity and floated beneath the dome, circling around Tianxi's body. "Our partner can actually fly. This way, he can use his large mouth to meticulously grind away the skin and flesh of your little foot bit by bit. He can slowly chomp down. It's better for digestion. So, let's work together a bit more?" As he spoke, the devil ray's long tail of electricity had already wrapped around Tianxi's calf. It hooked onto her stockings a bit, coiled up and gradually tightened. Tianxi felt the sensation of a snake coiling around her calf. There was even the numbing power of electricity. Her entire body trembled, and the gurgling sound of her throat mixed with her hoarse sobs. She just wanted to faint. But under Puppeteer's control, this became an extravagant hope. "Pay attention to the time," Puppeteer reminded her one last time. Tianxi's thoughts were in complete chaos. Fear ruled over everything. It was like the claws of a demon probing into her brain and rummaging. Whatever was inside, it would be pulled out. Because of Gear. Gear is senior sister Qingwen's masterpiece. You can see it here. Gear? That's the society building we went to first, right? Puppeteer tilted his head and continued to ask, "Senior sister Qingwen? Who's that?" "It's junior brother Luo Nan's mother. I have a bit of an impression, but it doesn't seem to be of much use." Puppeteer spoke, but he glanced in Luo Nan's direction from the corner of his eye. Black Beetle stared in that direction with fixed eyes. He suddenly thought of something and contacted someone through his wristband. "Hello, you guys are still in Gear, right? Oh right, it's that society building. Hurry up and prove it." "Idiot, isn't it easy to break something, set it on fire or something?" As he spoke, he raised his arm horizontally and turned on the speaker function. He turned the volume to the maximum. A short second later, a loud crashing sound accompanied by crashing noises could be heard. There was no sign of it stopping. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.